welcome to the Superhero Rewind Commentary Project. It is I, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is my sidekick, Austin the Day Ghost. And we are right on the heels, of course I'm going to immediately date this commentary, right on the heels of Deadpool and Wolverine, which just came out in the theater yesterday, and we thought we would do something lining up with that, something correlated to that, and there were four movies we could have done. I thought about even taking a month and just knocking them all out, but I think we're just going to do this one and save the other ones for later and keep kind of jumping around, cherry picking like we usually do. So tonight we're going to start where it all began with those two characters. Weird the world we live in now, where there are now have you thought about this, Austin? There is a Wolverine trilogy and a Deadpool trilogy now, sort of kind of bookended with a Deadpool and Wolverine movie. So you have like two legitimate, or maybe the way I should put it is, it's like two trilogies that end with the two of those finally being together, right? So you have Origins, which gives us Wolverine and ostensibly Deadpool, and then two actual Wolverine movies that people kind of like, and this one is totally dismissed. And then you have two Deadpool movies that people actually count because they like them, and then we've now capped that off with a movie that's both of them.
That is crazy.
It's weird.
I also had a dawning realization like 20 minutes ago that obviously people were kind of talking about it in the comments earlier, but it's one of the big things that I think this movie is remembered for, which is that it has one of the greatest video game tie-ins of all time.
Right.
And that game was made by Raven. And the Deadpool game that came later was created by High Moon Studios, and they're both basically dead studios that are Call of Duty support studios now.
Yeah, that's sad.
It is sad.
Raven was a really apropos name for that developer for Wolverine, though, because that game actually has Mystique in it, if memory serves.
Well, and Deadpool was supposed to be playable in that game originally, and I think there was rumors that Mystique would have been as well, but...
Didn't you tell me, and I love that you got that out right at the start, because I knew that game was one of the big things you wanted to talk about. We haven't even said anything at all about tonight's movie. It's X-Men Origins Wolverine, but you immediately lead with, okay, this kind of sucks, but play the video game. And that's what everybody says about this now. It's like the thing everybody leads with is, okay, that movie was bad, but at least we got this game out of it. And didn't you tell me that that started in development as just a comic Wolverine game and then it became a tie-in?
Yeah, that's part of why that game's so good, is that the movie gets delayed and it starts in development before it, and then Marvel goes, hey, they're making a Wolverine movie, maybe you should like tie it in. And there's also weird things where I don't know if it's ever been confirmed, but I think developers in the game have said that like the Africa stuff in the script is added on after the game, where the game has originally had the Savage Lands in it, and then they added that to the movie, but it was Africa, and then forced the game to change it to Africa. It's like a whole thing.
Was that reshoots? Because I know that comes real late in the production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it must be then, because it's I think pretty late into development of that game.
Yeah, well, and we'll talk about all this, but Gavin Hood, the director, has lamented that he wasn't involved very much in the script writing process, and the writers were thousands of miles away, not there on set, and he was getting pages emailed or faxed or whatever like the night before a shoot, constant rewrites. And I just can't even imagine working like that. Mm-hmm. Like right out the gate, before we get into this, I'll say we're in a tad bit, not exactly the same situation, in a little bit of a Joel Schumacher place with this, where it's not entirely the director's fault. He's not to be blamed for a lot of what went wrong with this.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the reason why I like immediately go, okay, but the game is that I have way more of a connection to the game than I do this movie. That's the first M-rated game that I buy for myself, and then I think I told you this on After Dark. When I first see that movie, my mom took me to the flea market where we were picking up burned movies, and we picked up the 6 month early cut of cut, like it's an official thing of
Oh, I didn't realize you bought it burned on a disc.
hmm
That's hilarious.
Yeah, because I was like, what the hell? Like, this movie comes out in like 6 months. Like, so my mom was like, well, buy it then. So, so then that was my first experience with the movie, so I never bothered with it in the theater. And then I picked it
Wow.
up on DVD, and the only thing I cared about was I opened it up, and there was an ad for Ultimate Alliance 2. And I was like, oh, there's an Ultimate Alliance 2, and I went out and bought it. So like I have way more attachment to video games around this movie than I do this movie.
Well, and obviously you're not in the minority in not having much of an attachment to it, but a lot of the attachment, if you can use that word, people have with it is kind of a loathing or at least a dismissal.
Mhm.
And this falls in that category to a degree that X3 does, where I have a difficult time having the same vitriol about it that I had at one time because we've moved well past it and we've redeemed a lot of the issues that this movie has with better iterations of these characters. So it's hard to be that upset even going back and watching this. Like now it's kind of an old silly curiosity where it's like that, it feels almost like that crappy B movie version, even though it's still technically in the same continuity regardless of retconning and stuff. Because I think indisputably it's not very long after this that the movies decide it doesn't count and it doesn't exist. And there's a lot of little retconning that happens through the X-Men movies, but this movie just at some point we totally forget about and bypass, and everybody knows it doesn't work, and everybody knows you can't build on it as a prequel thing. But I think it kind of falls in that X3 category a little bit, like I said, of just a thing that's hard to be as upset about. Like Deadpool has been redeemed to the point of being a bigger franchise even than X-Men. Wolverine was redeemed in having finally the Japanese story that Laura Schuler Donner wanted to tell in the first place. One of the big X-Men producers when they made this movie, and then we get Logan, which is almost universally loved, and so it's hard to go back. And like with X3, because I used to have so much anger and vitriol toward X3. I agree with Austin with a thing that he said recently, that it's probably the best of the bad X-Men movies. This going back to it is still a chore and irritating. And hard not to be
Yeah.
frustrated just because you have to sit through it. But I have a hard time having the same anger about it that I once did.
So, I had like two things that, like, obviously, like you just said, I think X3 is the best of the worst X-Men movies. But I always remember this as being the second best. And going back to it, it is not. I think this is the second worst one. This is really bad. Oh, I guess I just threw out my review, but
That's true.
whatever.
That's all right. I think, and that's not going to surprise anybody. I have a hard time not leading with it when you're kind of falling in the consensus.
Yeah, and I agree. Like, I'm not mad at this movie, but it's my main thing is it's just really boring.
Yeah.
Like, it's just hard to sit
I'm
through.
kind of, yeah, I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of irritated with it while I'm watching it. And I had to sit through it twice this week, and the first time around I was just kind of numbed to it. Like, it had been a long time, and I was like, oh, I'm watching this. And then, because we're doing the Rewind commentary, I'm watching it the second time, thinking a lot harder about story and thematic stuff, and I'm like, what were you even thinking? Like, what happened? I don't know. Once I have to do the assignment, I'm kind of mad again.
Mhm. I mean, it's like, what were they thinking?
Yeah. I could count on my Wolverine claws the number of positive things, like accolades, I would give this movie.
So
There's
can
not,
I, but
there's not much I
specifically,
like about it.
so can I, but specifically that scene in X1 where he gives Cyclops the middle finger
You
claw.
could you could count it on one claw.
I can count it on my middle finger claw.
If you had a single claw, so you could count it on your Baraka Pool sword blades.
But if you only had one.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, we'll go ahead and get into it and start doing our commentary. Get it at timestamp 0. This movie is currently available on Disney Plus, like most of, if not all of the X-Men movies. Some of these have come in and out, but lately it seems like a lot, if not all of them, are available.
Yeah, it's really weird because we got them like really quickly, and then I think I was talking to you, and I was like, oh, First Class on Disney Plus, and you're like, oh, we don't even have that, and it seems like you guys have had a much harder time with having them and keeping them on Disney Plus. While
Well, I
we
think a
just
lot of it is because of services that aren't in
most
Canada.
likely,
So
most likely.
I think if memory serves, and I don't know if anybody cares about this, but if memory serves, I think at the time that Disney got the X-Men movies, Max still had a contract. And you guys don't have Max, so that would probably explain that.
I think the only one we're waiting on is Dark Phoenix, but they might have added it, and I just don't know.
And by waiting on, you just mean it's not there.
Yeah, just no one at Disney realized.
I have a hard time ranking the bad X-Men movies. Like, for me, this and Apocalypse are kind of vying for that spot, for the top spot. But I think Apocalypse makes me more angry just because it's made by arguably a more competent team, and a team that had proved themselves right before that again, and going further back, and because it was immediately following a movie that I got very excited about the future of, and then it just tanked it all immediately. And if it's not for, so you can't say yet anyway. Well, and I say yet, I mean we're kind of done with the Fox X-Men movies, Deadpool and Wolverine notwithstanding. But with this, you can't. Or with Apocalypse, you can't say, well, if not for Apocalypse, we wouldn't have gotten this great thing. If not for Origins, we wouldn't have had a reset that would have given us First Class and Days of Future Past. So it is one of those things that, and I'm not saying it makes it a better movie, but we needed kind of two duds in a row like this for Fox to get its act together and come up with a better concept for a foundation, even if it only lasted two movies.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about this in the Days of Future Past rewind, but I think that takes some of the bite out of Apocalypse for me, and that like I want First Class continuing. Not that I was like, oh, don't continue off of Days of Future Past, but like I don't have as much.
No, we have talked about that. I was much more excited about it at the end of that.
Yeah,
and this movie, you were annoyed with from the beginning. Like, you didn't like from the beginning, and I was in that camp that for some reason drank weird Kool-Aid that day and thought it was fine. Like, wasn't over the moon, but saw it in the theater, and I was like, oh, it's Wolverine. Like, this is all right. And I think collectively, all of us that had somehow lost our minds that year, the very next time we all saw it, we were like, what the heck were we smoking? This is awful.
Well, and I think that's why I remember this movie being funny bad, is because my first experience was the unfinished cut, which is a much funnier viewing than the actual movie. It's the one place where you can say that an unfinished version of the movie is a better cut.
I think something else that that maybe affected me with this too is I wasn't as on about prequelitis yet. I mean, like, I did already hate that, and I complained about it some, but I think sometime after I saw Origins, I started turning more on Smallville.
Interesting.
And that absolutely makes this worse. but honestly, for at least the first couple of seasons of that show, this makes that show look like Bates Motel or something. Like, it's definitely prequelitis-wise overall worse if you can compare a 2-hour movie to a 10-season-long TV show.
But I still think the worst X-Men movie at this point is Dark Phoenix, just because it's the most boring. Like, it doesn't annoy me or like make me angry, but if you put a gun to my head and said you have to watch one of them right now, that's the one I don't want to watch because it's really boring. I would just say shoot.
Yeah, well, and I wonder if I'll have that after we live with it and do this show on it, because I wasn't really in that place with Apocalypse until I did a deep dive on it. And I haven't done that with Dark Phoenix yet. I saw it one time in the theater. I've not seen it again.
Mm-hmm. No, it's maybe the most nothing superhero movie I've ever seen.
I didn't mean for a 15-minute preamble, but we'll get into this.
Entirely about the franchise, too, not even about this movie. We're really like...
It's hard not to do that. There's so much of it. Anyway, so here we go. The precursor to Deadpool and Wolverine... years and years, or 15 years earlier. Is this an anniversary year for this movie? I think it is.
This
would be 15, yeah.
Yes, 2009. So yeah.
Yeah. So the glorious 15-year anniversary of... I'm sure that MCU made sure to get Deadpool and Wolverine out on the 15th anniversary of X-Men and Wolverine.
That's potentially the case, maybe.
And the 10th anniversary Days of Future Past.
There you go.
Which is more significant, certainly. But anyway, is everybody ready to jump into the pool on this? Into the Deadpool, as it were?
To the Deadpool, yeah.
I didn't even do that on purpose. Okay, I got the clock up. I'm ready to press play. I'm going to fix my audio settings so we don't have to deal with that again. Thanks for joining us live. Thanks for being here after the fact. If you're doing that, and if you're watching live throughout the show, we will try to interact with you as much as possible. So do leave comments. We won't talk about every one of them, but if you want to make sure that something gets addressed or that your feelings get heard, you can leave a super chat in any dollar amount, and we appreciate everybody that helps us out in that way. But regular comments, too, we'll answer as much as we can get away with. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now.
Why did Louis Armstrong tell us to press play?
He's a big Wolverine fan, that Louis Armstrong.
I see Wolverine.
Deadpool 2.
No one thought we were going to this place.
No, they couldn't have expected that.
There.
So I'll just open with the first thing that is on everybody's mind, which is this movie sucks.
This movie sucks.
But I got to get it out right away. And I know there's some people that still kind of enjoy this as a guilty pleasure or maybe even legitimately just for performances and stuff. But I'll say, one of my three claw things would be some of the casting is really good. Sure. And some of the performances are as good as they can be. Everybody talks about Liev Schreiber. Yes, he is fantastic casting for Sabretooth. The character in this movie is not a great character and doesn't get anything like enough interesting stuff to do.
Well, I find it ends up leaving him feeling kind of generic, even though like he is a really good choice and he does a good job here.
Doesn't that kind of hurt your feelings? Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question for you right at the get-go. Also, I'm just going to throw out the thing because it's me. Canada doesn't even exist at this point.
I made that point when I reviewed this years ago, and you actually are Canadian, so I'm sure immediately you caught that. You're probably like, wait a minute. I know when our country was a country.
And over a decade. Like it's 22 years.
Oh, I thought it was only by a few years. Is it that long?
It's 22, and Northwest Territories doesn't even come into Canada until even after that. So...
Oh, that's spectacular. Okay.
So I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Which is, so in the comics, there is no relationship between, or no familial relationship between Wolverine and Sabretooth. But Claremont wanted Sabretooth to be Wolverine's father.
Yes.
Is it maybe weird that if you were going to give them a family connection that you wouldn't do something like that?
Yeah, and make it a tragic father-son story. Absolutely. If you were going to go that way, that's absolutely what it should have been. Now, some people feel like, and I haven't read it in a long time, so I can't speak to it real hard tonight. I was going to try to do that this week, and I didn't get to it. But with Origin, which is what this opening sequence is based on, which gave us the first origin for Wolverine, and solidified the Bone Claws, if not introduced them. I cannot remember if there was precedent for that before that. But anyway, in that book, some people feel like there were hints that they could possibly have been brothers, but they don't explicitly state that.
Oh, okay. So you think maybe that's where they got that?
Yeah, when he just decided to go all the way and make it explicit. But I think the problem with this opening sequence is that it feels like the tail end of an origin movie and doesn't provide enough context for us to really care about the plight of these characters or even really appreciate how these guys feel about their parentage, what's significant about the fact that one of these guys that they thought was, or that Logan thought was his father is not actually his father. We don't know what the situation is at all. We don't know why one kills the other, and we certainly don't understand past that what is significant about that background that leads one of these children to be more heroic and the other to go down a darker path.
Hmm.
What are we supposed to take from any of this?
The most you get out
Besides
of it
Bone
is
Claws and Sabretooth is his brother and something trauma and tragedy. That's all you get from it.
that, and it's just like, oh look, they thought their father was like a prim and proper guy, but he was actually just Sabretooth.
Well,
Isn't that
also what I don't like
awful?
about that is it suggests that I it sort of suggests this kind of negative nurture over nature thing in my estimation, Austin, which is the kid raised by the prim and proper guy with money turns out okay, and the kid that's raised more poor and destitute is the one that turns out terrible. I don't
Mhm.
think there was any thought given to that, but that's how it comes across because we don't have any clear sense as to why these two guys evolve the way they do and together. Like the whole idea is they make a pact to stay together forever, and over time as they're going through all these wars. By the way, why do they fight in these wars? I don't know. They got nothing better to do.
And always for the Americans, I assume.
Yeah, it's always for America, and we even have. It's weird. Sometimes the script will make a joke about things that the audience has got to be wondering about, but it doesn't give us an explanation. It's almost like tongue in cheek, going, "Yeah, we know it's stupid," but I don't think they realize that they're doing that. With the line later where Logan tells Stryker, "Well, I'm Canadian," when he says like fighting for your country, but like they are fighting for America this whole time. Why?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
Why did he fight in the Civil War? He's Canadian.
Well, he fled. He fled a Canada that didn't exist to America. They should have shown him fighting in the War of 1812 and burning down the White House.
That would have been great,
That'd have been awesome.
and that would have been a fun callback to the beginning of X2
Yes,
if you did that right at the start.
that would have been awesome. Although I guess he can't do that because he was born in 1840 something. So I guess that doesn't make any sense.
Who cares? I wish they could have made
Whatever.
it earlier
I
so
don't
they could
care.
have
This
done
movie
that.
sucks anyway.
I always try to give these things their due where I can, but overall, hardly anything works in this. People also complained even when it came out. I mean, it was 15 years ago, but even in '09, a lot of the visual effects in this movie don't hold up great. This stuff is all really obviously shot on green screen. A lot of, I said a lot of it,
Yeah.
and looks very second unit because it was all second unit, and it's not a bad idea. Like I appreciate the attempt at economic visual storytelling here, where it goes instead of having a lot of discussion about uh, Sabretooth going dark and reveling in violence while Wolverine is not going that way, we'll try to show, and Gavin Hood talks about this in his commentary, the idea is supposed to be that he gets rougher and darker as time goes along, and eventually Wolverine just can't go along with that anymore, of course, as we see when they try to get the adamantium rock. But I don't even know if it comes across that he's getting worse so much as just this is the difference between them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
always evil, yeah.
I kind of appreciate that idea, but it doesn't translate.
Mm-hmm.
Gavin Hood spends a lot of time in his commentary just explaining why things are happening, and I don't like it when directors do that, but I actually kind of needed it for this movie because it doesn't communicate a lot of things very well, and there's places where I'm like, oh, that's what you were trying to do, but not in a, oh, okay, if only you accomplished that kind of way. Like, with that in particular, sure, that's not a terrible idea. A lot of the things that he comes out and says, this is what we were after, I'm like, it's still stupid. I still don't like that.
The movie still sucks. I also don't know if this is a hot take, but I'm also not a fan of the bone claws thing.
I'm not either.
Yeah.
But I was against it when I read it in Origin. I've always liked that story, but I never liked it in continuity. It's kind of like, to a lesser degree, the Killing Joke thing, where I love that as a standalone out of continuity Batman story, but I don't know that I needed it to affect everything, except for Oracle. Obviously, I love Oracle, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the big exception with that. But with the origin, it's like I never needed a Wolverine origin. I liked that it was somewhat mysterious. I like that we get just enough of it in X2 and we move on and we never have to touch it again. And then the very next thing they do after X3 is flesh it out in the most prequelitis, convoluted, nonsensical way possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's basically just the same person too. Like it's not even like you're like, oh wow, look at how different he was back then.
It feels really superfluous and pointless because it goes out of its way, especially with his not losing his memories because of Weapon X, but having to contrive some stupid reason, and it's really stupid, some really dumb reason for him to lose it at the end just because that has to happen, just so that he can seem more heroic. It's kind of like a lot of the bad anti-hero Sony things we've been getting lately, where it's like they can't just be a movie about a conflicted, like, dark character that maybe can at some point be redeemed, maybe, but if you're gonna do the origin of that character, they probably shouldn't start in such a redemptive place. And we talk all through this movie about Wolverine, like whether he's going to embrace the animal or not, and you never see it. I mean, I think that was the big reason that Hugh Jackman was so frustrated with this and wanted to make another one after it. Is that we keep talking about the animal, but he never really gets to be that at all. What besides trying to get revenge on Sabretooth and some of the people he kills in that endeavor? What lines does he really cross? Not a lot. It doesn't seem
Yeah,
like.
not really anything. I know this is also something you've talked about before, but Wolverine was like really hogging screen time in the X-Men movies. Why does he need an entire team here? Like you could simplify so much of this by just having it be Sabretooth and Wolverine.
The premise is counterintuitive. The approach is counterintuitive. I even have the same thing, Austin, with this movie, sort of, that I do with Ant-Man 2, which is we get to where I think we should have been at the end of the first act as the climax.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like if you're going to do this idea, it maybe would have been interesting to like RoboCop it, where you have...
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Where like you have that either as the beginning of the movie or like...
First act.
Or first act, exactly.
First act. Give us Weapon X in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Establish Wolverine and what he's like, and he has to be, I think, a really lost, wayward soul that is easily swayed, and not because of a stupid master manipulation plot, but to become Weapon X because he's got nowhere to go, he's got nothing to do, he's got no he's just a broken person. And yes, in this particular case, I'm kind of rewriting the movie because what's here doesn't feel like it fits with the tone of the lost man that we meet, who feels like in the first X-Men movie, who feels like he maybe was once a really terrible person that needs redemption. That's what I always got from that.
Mm-hmm.
And this just doesn't give you that at all. So I don't feel like it lines up with what we've had before, and it's also just not interesting.
No, and obviously, like you said, you don't want to rewrite the movie, but this is the type of movie that needed a page one rewrite.
Page one rewrite, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a case where I make a little bit of an exception with the rewriting. I still think that what they're trying to accomplish could be done more effectively. Mm-hmm. But I make a little bit of an exception with the rewriting thing because this is so retroactive. And it's that thing I'm always complaining about with a lot of bad prequels, that it feels like it's working backwards from a conclusion rather than telling a story that could stand on its own. You go back and read, whether it's your kind of thing or not, Windsor Smith's Weapon X, and that is a standalone story. You don't have to know anything about Wolverine to appreciate what's happening in that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned wanting to reread Origin. I wish I read that for this, but...
Weapon X.
Weapon X, yeah.
And yes, it's frustrating as a Wolverine fan not to see a more like pure adaptation of the comics and sticking closer to what Weapon X was. But as I always say, as long as you're telling an interesting and engaging story, and I'm buying that it goes with as a prequel what you made before, unless you're full on retconning, but that's not what they think they're doing. You know, so I mean, there's rules they've set up for themselves that they're not following. Unless you're doing that, it can certainly be different. But it what we're but what we're given instead is just, like I said, so convoluted and so contrived.
I agree. Sorry, I just noticed he did a Deadpool hand thing that he does a lot in the Deadpool movies, and it was just like in the background. It was like, oh, he like did a Deadpool thing. That's weird.
Funny. Yeah, Reynolds is getting at everything he can get away with. And
he did like the hand flutter thing.
Can't you just read the frustration in his face?
Yes. Also, all these characters are mutants. What is Hannibal King's mutant power here? Deadpool?
He doesn't seem to have one. I guess sword wielding?
He sword wields real good.
And then what makes him the perfect candidate for Weapon 11, who's supposed to have as many mutant powers in one body as humanly possible? Like, Wolverine is something... We'll talk all this out. I promise you none of it makes sense. But...
I guess it's just because he already has skills.
Sure, I guess it's that. I guess it's because he's really good at Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, exactly. He's got skills, and girls like guys with skills.
That's the reason.
It's the only reason.
But yeah, famously, comic Wade Wilson has a healing factor that goes even beyond Wolverine's, where he can regenerate even more than that, and it's not just healing. And in this, it just seems like we arbitrarily picked this guy, and we got rid of his whole power set for some reason, and then he gets Wolverine's healing factor as one of the powers that's put into him.
Mm-hmm. And he's got
and the choice for that guy is what? It's just ironic that he's got a closed mouth because he likes to talk a lot. I'm like, that's it?
That and they like kind of make his face look like the Deadpool mask, so like also having the mouth shut adds to that, I guess.
And they think that's so clever, I guess.
There's a lot of I guess.
What? Something I didn't realize was just how far back Ryan Reynolds was trying to make that Deadpool movie. Like
it's right after Blade Trinity.
I knew it was before this, but I didn't realize that it goes all the way back to 2003, and that he was trying to get it done with a New Line.
Oh, I thought it was like right after Blade Trinity was what I always heard, and
that's what I always heard too. And then I read today that there was talk with New Line, who made the Blade movies, going all the way back to 2003. And then my question with that is, isn't Deadpool part of the X-Men package? I mean, look, they're making an X-Men movie, and here's Deadpool. How would New Line have even gotten the rights to it? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Take that with a grain of salt. I don't know how much I buy that, but
yeah. Yeah, because I thought the story was always consistently like he did Blade Trinity, and people were like, "Hey, you're basically just playing Deadpool in this movie."
Also, on this viewing, I was making a lot of parallels to Watchmen, particularly with the opening montage going through the decades, and with Sabretooth being kind of a poor stand-in for the comedian in some ways, with his excessive force and also Vietnam, and he kills a woman that he wants to sleep with in Vietnam, kind of like the comedian does with the woman that he impregnates. Like it's weird how much Watchmen is in the background, and then what's interesting is it comes out the same year as Watchmen.
Yes, it does.
And Zack Snyder turned down this movie to make Watchmen, which I didn't know.
There's also the story's kicked off by Sabretooth's going around killing these mercs that were on this team. So it's like what Rorschach thinks is happening in Watchmen at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. Yes, thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. That was the other thing. And then here it's ultra convoluted, and I'm not even 100% sure why it's happening. You want to talk that out for a second? Like, how much time do we really want to spend on, like, throughout the movie, or do we want to just get it out of the way right now with Stryker's ridiculous working your way backwards master manipulation plot to get Wolverine to agree to be Weapon X based on a single line in X2. If I recall, you volunteered for the program, so we got to find some way for him to volunteer for the program. I feel like there's 50 more more straightforward ways to do it than what he does here.
Just have him in his little team or whatever at the beginning. And then he goes into Weapon X, and then he loses his memory, like RoboCop.
Yeah.
And boom, there you go.
Like I said, you just make him kind of a broken, wayward guy who handles all of his problems with violence because that's easy for him, and maybe he's lived too long already, and everybody cares about is gone, and he's just tired of life. And then Stryker comes to him and says, I can give you purpose. You can save the world or your country or however you want to look at it. I'm sorry, I have to stop everything for just a second and say, Dominic Monaghan is playing just some guy in this.
Yes.
That they made up who's got electricity powers or who can control electricity. His powers are almost on like a Magneto level, and it's preposterous how easily he's taken out. This guy should be really powerful. It's nuts that he's like nothing in this. And secondly, this is the most preposterous, single, worst thought out carnival game of all time.
Yes.
This carnival game, how does he stay in business after the second or third person that comes up to play this carnival game? Like, there's not a more obviously rigged carnival game.
Also, does he just have like a box of light bulbs, like in case? Like, I imagine that would happen quite a bit. Like, they take it out and then it breaks.
Yeah, why would
look
anyone?
at his room. I guess they're full of.
Why would anyone even fall for that? Like, I get throw a thing at a can that's like glued there that never falls off because you think initially if you throw it maybe the can will fall off, but who's gonna walk up and try to turn off a light? You get 3 tries to turn off the light. Ooh, gee, let me guess, there's no way to do it, right?
There's only 3 possible things you can do: unplug it, hit the button, and unscrew it. You're not gonna have repeat plays.
It's the dumbest carnival game. Anyway, what were we talking about?
He should have died in such a stupid way because of that.
So, Victor's whole motivation, and this movie has massive motivation issues. Victor's whole motivation is simply he and Logan are supposed to be brothers till the end, and he feels like Logan has betrayed him by not continuing to murder people for fun with him. So, he's very sympathetic. And the reason he's going around killing, initially, ostensibly, we're told, going around killing the old team, a la Watchmen, like you so accurately brought up, astutely brought up, is that he's wanting to draw Wolverine out because he's mad at him. And then we'll find out later that the real reason he's doing that is because he stayed in Stryker's charge, and Stryker is trying to convince Wolverine to join him and eventually become Weapon X, but he hasn't brought up Weapon X yet. In order to do the whole Weapon 11 thing later, I guess. But Stryker, I'll just get this out of the way now. Stryker has 2. Sorry, I'm very distracted by that screaming. Stryker has 2 totally different avenues for getting Wolverine, for convincing Wolverine to do this, for manipulating him to join him. And you'd think that one of them would be a B plan for the other one. That it would be, okay, if I can't get him to do it because all of his friends are being killed, I'll kill his wife. Mm-hmm. And then that'll convince him to want to get revenge on Sabretooth. And so he's like manipulating everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is he is blackmailing her with her sister, Wolverine's wife.
And her powers are to convince people to do things.
And her powers are to convince people to do things. But yeah, there's that too. She could be using that to. Well, I guess she can't because it doesn't work on Wolverine. So something healing factor. I don't know. It is established that it doesn't work on Wolverine or Sabretooth. So I assume it's something to do with the healing factor. By the way, if my review is convoluted, blame the movie, because that's going to happen when we're talking about something that's this all over the place. But hear me out. What he does is he had the forethought to blackmail this woman into falling in love, or into at least pretending whether she's actually in love with it or not, to get with Wolverine. Somehow knows for sure that she can sweep him off his feet and become the love of his life, so that if he needs to later, he can pretend to have her killed, which he knows for sure will make Wolverine angry enough that he will want revenge on his brother for doing it, and will buy the idea that the only way he can beat Sabretooth in a fight is to have an adamantium skeleton.
Also, if he only needs Wolverine because he wants a healing factor to put into Weapon 11,
yeah,
he already has Sabretooth in his employ. Can't he just get it from him? Can he be like, yo, I want to make you Weapon X?
So the phrase of the day is working backwards, because what this movie loves to do is it will realize in a plot hole like that, and it will fill it with like ankle deep water.
Mm-hmm.
And the ankle deep water there is there's a line toward the end where Sabretooth says, I can take anything he can, and Stryker says, no, you can't, because they ran tests that said that he wouldn't be able to handle the adamantium. And something that means that Deadpool, that Weapon 11 can't use his DNA instead of Wolverine's. Here's the thing. Going even farther than just the complicated mass manipulation plot, because I'll just finish that thought real quick. The big stupid thing that I wanted to finish that with is you've already got that really convoluted way of getting him there with her, but just in case, you're also having Sabretooth just run around and kill the old team. Like, it's a really bizarre plot, right?
Mm.
But explain this to me. Riddle me this. How does... there's the obligatory Wolverine line. How does making Weapon X, infusing Wolverine's body with an adamantium skeleton, have anything at all to do with what Deadpool is?
But because he's got everything.
So Wolverine has healing factor. What he doesn't have is hard, impenetrable skin, which means if all you need is the healing factor. Now, to your point, you already have that with Sabretooth. They tried to cover their bases and say you can only do it with Wolverine for some reason. Adamantium does not give you that. I don't understand that at all. It makes no sense. You're absolutely right. But forgetting the Sabretooth of it all, with every other mutant, all he's doing is getting a syringe and taking their DNA, which you can do with Wolverine even though he'll heal from him. So you don't need Weapon X. You just do that. And Stryker doesn't even seem that interested in using Wolverine as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a stepping stone to Weapon 11. Like, they didn't think that out at all.
Well, if they just need his DNA, he's literally sleeping with someone under Stryker's employ.
He could have had it this whole time.
Needle him, yeah, in his sleep.
And more than that, why do they need to kill or imprison all of these mutants that they're taking the DNA from? All they need is the DNA. They don't need the mutants.
Well, I don't know.
What are they for?
I don't know if you remember a little movie called X2, Cap. But in that movie, Stryker kidnapped a bunch of children.
Oh, so he has to do that here because that's just a thing he does?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if you remember X2 very well, Austin, but the reason that he was kidnapping mutants there is because he found a way to control them, and he used all of them for very specific reasons, and he had multiple weapons, and he was building a, what do you call it, an army. So wait a minute. So this is even funnier, right? Stryker, going all the way back, his whole plan is have one mutant with a ton of powers in him. Like one mutant. If anybody could ever take him out, you got to start right back from the drawing board.
Well, that's why he learned. He was like, okay, I need to control multiple mutants. But he also
So
changed the system in that he has like the drip thing he puts on your neck, and then he can talk to you. In this, he controls Deadpool with a keyboard. Like he's like a text-based video game.
That's true.
And
So
like, how
this-
much of that does he have to control?
Yeah, that's great. And I don't know why he can't do that with anybody else.
Yeah, like, is it just like kill Wolverine, or is it like WASD moves you forward, left, right, and back, and he like has to play Deadpool?
So it's actually Stryker that's good at Mortal Kombat, is what you're saying.
Exactly, yeah.
We didn't get to see him do a fatality because he
knows all the
died.
combos.
So, I'm sorry, what?
I said he knows all the combos.
So this brilliant, evil, generous general slash maybe scientist man, is so smart that he goes from one guy with all the powers to an army of mutants. Like he has to evolve over decades to come up with army. Okay.
Maybe in X2 he was secretly making an all-powerful mutant, but he just didn't get far enough.
Maybe so. Well, to be fair, I say army. I'm being a little bit silly and hyperbolic. The real thing he's doing there is using mutants up to for each individual task up to the point where he can then kill them all.
Mm-hmm.
And here you have to already know what his motivation was in X2 to have any sense of why he's doing anything he's doing. And there's hints of it because of his son, Jason. But overall, he feels like a completely different character.
Yeah, when Jason's frozen in carbonite in this movie, so I guess all that stuff's already happened.
Yeah, that's already happened, which means that he already sent his son to Xavier's school.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that works okay, because Xavier is here at the end and clearly has an established school.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I guess that works okay. The thing again, just getting all this out of the way now, the thing I don't get about Jason, because we talked over the stupid moon
I was going to say
lover story.
I just realized we talked over Keikuatsu, and I'm very sad.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We did talk over that.
No, it's okay.
Which is, again, the word of the night is convoluted. That's also a super silly, convoluted story that's supposed to, like, foreshadow that she's going to turn out to be working with the bad guy. But, like, if you're paying any attention, it's sort of kind of obvious that they're trying to set up some kind of reversal for her with that. And then it's, like, too convenient that Kuke Kawatsu or whatever, I think I actually said it right, is named the Wolverine.
Oh, look, he even did the Watchman smiley face.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. But let me ask you this question about Stryker's son, Jason.
Yes.
Stryker says Jason was the beginning,
Mm.
and Wolverine is the end, and then everything in between, you put it all together and you get Deadpool. Like that's the combination of powers with Wolverine's healing factor and something adamantium, even though Deadpool doesn't seem to have any adamantium, gets you to a mutant that they can control that the powers won't destroy him. What does Jason's powers have to do with anything?
I don't know, because he doesn't have that ability.
Yeah, they don't have Deadpool use any kind of mind powers.
Hmm.
And
No, it's really just the teleporting, the claw thing, and tel Cyclops' vision, which they get wrong, and it's heat vision.
Weapon 11 should have the ability to both put images in your mind that make you think you're seeing things that aren't there, and also to be able to touch you and through your clothes, may I add, and persuade you to do anything.
And also super speed, because we see Quicksilver, and turn into diamonds.
Now, maybe some of those powers were just a bridge too far, and that's
Maybe
why he
Stryker
didn't get
really
them.
just doesn't know any of the combos. He doesn't know how to use powers.
Maybe Stryker didn't even think to take her ability. Like, if you think about it, Kayla does almost nothing with that power.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
She's not even using it to persuade Wolverine to be in love with her, which would make that backstory maybe even more devastating if, like, he's not even sure if either of them were ever in love with each other. I mean, don't get me wrong, I hate that as the motivation for, for his, like, wanting revenge at the end, and for his being, such a tragic character. It was almost even a lot worse. Do you know about the insane deleted scene toward the end?
Maybe from back in the day, but I don't remember.
Okay, so I didn't know this until I got the double disc on this today. I was really lucky that I was able to get my hands on this, because I had the single disc that didn't have any special features. It had one little kind of throwaway 12-minute featurette. But I got to see the deleted scenes today, and Hood talks about this in his commentary. Originally, and they shot it all, and they cleverly cut it up so they could get rid of this scene. So, like, it was supposed to be in there. Originally, Austin, the movie would have tried to trick us twice about how Wolverine loses his memories.
No.
Yes. So the first time, of course, it's, oh, we're gonna take his memory, and then that's why he gets so angry and freaks out at the end of the Weapon X project. And then what it is at the end is the stupid adamantium bullet. It was almost even worse, where Stryker gives Wolverine the option to have his memory erased because he's so upset about Kayla. And he agrees to do it. And then Sabretooth shows up and fights him and stops it. And then the adamantium bullet would have still happened. Yeah.
That's stupid. So there was like a whole other fight at the end of this movie.
No, it wasn't even a fight. It was just Sabretooth shows up the way he does. But he interrupts Wolverine getting his memories wiped. So there's
like it's in the scene when Wolverine first goes there and talks to Stryker before Sabretooth walks in that scene.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I got you.
And what's hilarious about it is the scene where Kayla walks in. We're getting ahead of ourselves. This is in the third act, but the scene where Kayla walks in. Right now, what we're watching is Stryker convincing Wolverine, because he's a complete idiot in this movie. To be Weapon X, because Wolverine's response should have been, "Nah, I can take Sabretooth."
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Do you agree with that? Is it not ridiculous that our brilliant master manipulator comes up with, tell Wolverine the only way to beat his own brother is to get ripped apart and get adamantium skeleton? Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Wolverine just is an idiot.
So the scene where Kayla walks in at the end and says, hey, you got my sister. You got to let her go. And then Stryker turns around and is like, she has a beautiful power. I can't do that yet. You just got to be patient. If you'll remember, he's leaning over like equipment, like a computer console or something. Mm-hmm. And that's because he's been prepping Wolverine to lose his memories. That's what he's actually doing in that scene.
Yeah. Okay.
But they cut around it.
Oh my god, this movie's a mess.
It's an absolute mess.
Did we mention this movie sucks?
It
Also, while we're talking about how much Stryker and his plan sucks, the performance also sucks. It's such a downgrade from Brian Cox.
It's just as generic as it gets, and he doesn't even sound like he's from the same region of the country.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't at least hire somebody that could do a southern accent?
No, and now we have 3 Strikers that get progressively worse.
And none of them have southern accents after
None
Brian
of them
Cox.
have the same accent.
No, this is a different character.
Almost entirely.
It's like the movie understands what all the themes are supposed to be, but it can't figure out how to naturally introduce them. So it's got to have somebody just manipulating it all to happen. So you have to have Stryker tell him to be the animal instead of his being that way in the first place, and when he loses his memory, then being able to have that arc where he's conflicted and trying to decide if he even counts as a real human being. And the way Stryker talks about it in X2, I mean, not just is it infinitely more interesting, and it's better if this whole thing is a mystery anyway, but also the way he talks about it is not at all what we're seeing here, where he's like, you were an animal, I just gave you claws. Like, this Stryker has to convince him to act like that. There's no feral being here. And you can't convince me that next to Stryker's not talking about he's like, doesn't he say something about like the way you were when I found you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can tell that the idea was it was supposed to be a lot closer to Weapon X in the comics.
No, and the way he was when he found him is in prison for not killing innocent civilians in Vietnam.
Yeah.
That's what an animal.
Well, to be fair, he's in prison actually for killing innocent civilians, but he didn't do it. It was Sabretooth who did. So he's in prison because they tried to execute them and it didn't work out.
Mm-hmm. What an animal.
Yeah. And it's like, some of this feels like studio mandate, right? Where they're afraid to allow this character to not allow this character to look heroic, while simultaneously forcing this crew to make an origin story, because that's not what Donner, what the producers originally wanted to make. They wanted to just do the Frank Miller Japanese story, and Fox told them, well, you can do that eventually, but you got to do this first because everybody has to understand who this character is. While we got 3 movies about Wolverine already.
You know what would have been awesome, Cap, is if they did exactly what we've been talking about, where like the first act he loses his memory, and then he has no memory and he just walks onto a plane and flies to Japan.
Okay, so funny story that
Yes.
there's also a deleted scene where that sort of happens.
Yeah, I thought I'd heard that there was a deleted scene that kind of relates to Japan in this.
So what I read, because I didn't know about this, is that the silly after credits with Deadpool going shh, was in some of the showings.
Oh yes,
and then there's a after credit scene that was in the rest of the showings that was Wolverine going to a bar in Japan. And the whole scene is just this. He's asked by the bartender in Japanese, because apparently he's learned enough Japanese to speak Japanese to this woman. She asks him if he is drinking to forget, and he says, "No, I'm drinking to remember."
Oh,
and that's the whole
California
scene.
California blares through the rest of the credits.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing else because that's it.
No, I know.
But I remembered there being something about some of the showings had the Deadpool thing, but I didn't know about that scene because of course the default on the DVD is just the Deadpool one. Mm-hmm. So I had actually never seen that until today.
Which is funny because The Deadpool one sets up something we never really got, but the Japan one, not. I guess that doesn't really either, but it's closer to what the next movie is.
So riddle me this: how does Stryker have technology to just easily erase people's memories?
Well, it's not really technology as much as it's just putting a bullet through their brain.
Well, that's what it is later. He apparently has two ways to do it and knows
No,
for sure what
I
it
know.
is.
I'm just joking, but
Because he
yeah,
was going to do it in the tank. He's like, oh, just erase his memory. And that's why Wolverine is freaking out now. And the most feral he gets is, oh, I've been double crossed by the most obvious double crosser there is.
I guess it's just the same technology you would have used to program Deadpool to be like computer operated. He's got technology that can mess with your brain, I guess.
Oh, maybe, yeah. Because he's kind of turned Deadpool into a non entity. Maybe he erased his memories.
He must have. We just erased everything about him.
I do think the waterfall drop is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's fine. I think the awkward part about it is that he looks really fake. But
Well,
like the
that's
actual
this
shot
movie.
is nice. I mean, yeah, that is.
We haven't said this yet. Going back and looking at this again after a lot of years, this looks like a TV movie to me.
Yeah. Well, I've always said that Bryan Singer is kind of just a good TV director, but this is just a bad TV director.
Sure.
And now we have the introduction of Mon Pa Kent.
Yeah, which I remember even in the theater, this feeling really jarring. Where, like, I was just waiting for the spaceship to come out of the sky. Like, everything about how this is shot, it looks like you're not just being facetious. It looks like you're
No,
doing
it is
a
Mon Pa
Superman
Kent.
flight.
Like,
Yeah,
it straight up is.
that's just what it is.
We watch partied this last weekend, and we couldn't stop joking about how they're like, "Oh, we found a naked man in our barn. Let's adopt him."
So we try to do this kind of cute thematic thing where there's, I don't know if you saw it, but there's a little bumper sticker on the back of their truck that says, all who wander are not lost.
Mhm.
And I find that actually sort of insulting because it's like, we can't make a Wolverine movie where he's even lost in the first place.
No,
It's
he's
like,
okay.
no, sometimes they are, though. Like, let this be tragic. He's gonna be a hero later, and we've already seen it happen in 3 movies. Let this have the dour ending. You know, let him start from a bad place and let him pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Let it
here,
be.
he's just made an idiot so that he can have this horrible thing happen to him. And I don't know if you have this, but
Also,
also
he's just in the Terminator pose right now, and I don't know why.
that's true. And also, I was thinking Terminator in a couple places with this movie. This is going to be an odd point, Austin, but I
Yeah.
feel like the main theme in the score for this movie, which is not bad, but it sounds like a weird cross between the Terminator theme and some of the score from Lion King.
Oh, wacky! I'm gonna have to listen out for it.
Yeah.
And here's everyone's favorite scene.
Gavin Hood claims that parts of this are CG and parts of them are physical claws, and I could not tell you where the physical claws are.
Is it possible though that they had a physical prop on set and then they used CGI to enhance parts of it?
In fact,
Also,
he says they did.
ooh, is it maybe the part where he like turns and he cuts the sink? So my thing with this is, and we do this exact same scene in Amazing Spider-Man 2, but I find the scene kind of weird because it's like, oh, he can't use his claws, like he's not used to them yet, but he already had claws. It's more awkward because of that, I think.
That's a really good point. Yeah. I mean, what's weird about it now is just that they're metal, but why would that make him clumsier? It's not like he doesn't seem to have a problem lifting them or anything. Like they're heavy now.
Because that Amazing Spider-Man joke is, oh, he's not used to his spider powers yet, so he's destroying the bathroom. And I also don't like that scene, but like it makes more sense. Here, it doesn't even have that. Like it's just, his claws are metal now, but he already had claws.
Yeah, and the other thing with that scene is and I mean, this isn't fair because there's not even the CG like that with this, but like Peter Parker didn't look like a Roger Rabbit character.
Yeah. But that makes the scene better, really.
I like the Ma and Pa Kent actors. Okay, I think it's kind of
They
sad
would
that
have
they're
been
just.
a great Ma and Pa Kent if they were actually in a Superman project.
I think it's really sad that they're a plot device to give him the jacket that he won't even have by the end of the movie. So why did we introduce it? And to establish him riding on motorcycles, and then, I mean, immediately we murder them. Just right away. It's like they feel so disposable. We don't even need these guys anymore. And it doesn't even watch tragic to me. It's like we're not even given enough time to feel bad about that, really. Like, okay, they're helping him and they're, nice and sympathetic and salt of the earth, and it's supposed to be tragic. Logan handles this way better. And it's funny because Logan does the farm scene too, where we have a family that some of them get murdered because everybody Logan gets close to ends up getting hurt. Here it just doesn't play for the same kind of tragedy. We're not with them long enough. The reason they're killed makes no sense at all. Have you thought about this with Agent Zero?
About what? Sorry, I thought you were gonna explain it.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Because this infuriated me to no end. Going back and watching this again. So Agent Zero is told by Stryker, because they couldn't erase his memory, and now he's a wild card with an indestructible skeleton. So Stryker says you've got to just kill him now, right? So his orders are kill him. Mm-hmm. Agent Zero takes a sniper position, kills Ma and Pa Kent, immediately radios Stryker and says Logan has killed 2 civilians. Mm-hmm. Why? His orders were all ready to kill Logan. It's like he says that to try to get Stryker to like, is he trying to manipulate Stryker in that moment? Why is he lying about that?
Yeah, none of that makes sense.
And like, why kill them?
To frame Logan.
Just to for why? Why frame him? His orders were to kill him.
Stryker. Wolverine found a sniper rifle similar to my own, and he killed 2 people.
He's killed 2 civilians. Oh, okay. Well, and basically Stryker just goes, "Yep, all right, do what you were gonna do anyway." Like,
he's like, "Yeah, I told you to kill him."
He just murdered 2 civilians. And then Stryker says blow him to bits, which was already his orders.
Well, I guess now...
What?
I guess that means that now he has the orders to blow up this barn. That would be like the excuse. Like before, they couldn't just blow up an American farm. But all of this, I would think, is unsanctioned anyways.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe that's why he says that. I don't know, but that's flimsy to me.
Oh, it's definitely flimsy. But I mean, it's this movie, Cap.
It's so flimsy. Oh. AMC says, I'll answer this as respectfully as I can, but he says, I legitimately enjoy this movie and I really don't get the outrage and disdain for this film. I hope in the like 50 minutes I've been talking already, I've made that explicitly clear. Tom, $2 super chat. I like aspect/character moments in a vacuum.
I would also like it if every character in this film were in a vacuum.
And I don't even have a ton of that. I don't think there's very many, even like minute or two. Would you go this far, Austin?
Well, I don't mean literally. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean literally. Like if you sucked up all the characters in this film with a vacuum with the rest of the trash, I would like that. But sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was just I wasn't even referring to anything you were talking about. I was just gonna say, would you agree with me if I were to say that there probably aren't very many even like minute or two clips that you could take out of context and show them to me having not seen the film where I'd be like, oh wow, I'm excited to see this movie.
The most I would have with that is just some of the funny bad stuff. Like if you showed me the bathroom scene, and then the cool guys don't look at explosions
But
shot.
remember, I'm not a funny bad guy.
Sure. I'm just saying
I
that's
like
the
the
thing.
X-Men movies, and I want to see a great, legitimate Wolverine movie. Is there 60 seconds of this movie you could show me that would get me excited?
The part where Wolverine is clawing at the ladder to get Gambit to come down.
That's just funny, also.
Exactly.
But I'm not talking about funny things.
That's the most I can give you, Cap.
So the answer is no, then.
Maybe that shot when he rides and like cuts the truck, I guess.
I will say Wolverine putting his claws in the ground in order to turn the motorcycle around is legitimately a good idea.
Yeah, it doesn't look great, but that is a cool idea.
How did I see the trailer for this movie and not think it looked ultra cheap? Like, I remember thinking the trailer looked cool. I don't even understand that.
I don't know.
How starved still for superhero movies were we in '09?
Well, it was about to be fed, so we at least got stuff.
Bob the Hunt, $2 super chat, and
afterwards.
Ultimate Marvel Sabretooth is Wolverine's son. I did not know that.
Oh, you know what? I have heard that about Ultimate Wolverine and Sabretooth.
So they just full on did it then.
Well, I know Wolverine starts as a villain in Ultimate too, so like maybe that's part of it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they do a whole thing where, if I remember correctly, because I haven't looked into this in years, but I think maybe the first arc is like Wolverine is sent to like infiltrate and kill them, and then he becomes an X-Men maybe.
Yeah, I never liked what little I read of that book, so I never got very far.
Yeah, I mean, the only things people really like about the Ultimates are the Ultimate Universe are the Ultimates and Spider-Man, so.
Well, when they did the #1 relaunches after they introduced Miles Morales, I actually read Ultimate X-Men for a while, and I liked that stuff.
Oh, okay.
But the earliest run was not doing it for me. Tom, $2 super chat. Striker Proto Trask from Future Past. I'm glad you said that because I had that hard on this viewing and I had not had that thought before. There's a scene, and I wonder if Singer even realized that he was mirroring that scene, where Stryker is asked point blank if he hates mutants, just like Trask in Days of Future Past.
Interesting.
And he also says no. But instead of saying I admire them, he just says something along the lines of their powers are useful. I mean, it's not even an insight into the character like it is with Trask.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's got to be a coincidence, I would think.
I would think so too.
Look, cool guys don't stare at explosions, Cap. Isn't that cool?
You know, even beyond the sync thing, it might be the funniest shot in the movie. Like, I can't look at that with a straight face. Just the bad green screening and like
the fact that the explosion is so close to him that it would
yeah,
like burning
Hugh
him.
Jackman, God love him. He's trying to act his ass off, but it's so funny. Like
100%. I mean,
that
I
face.
guess that's something you can give this is Hugh Jackman. No matter how bad these movies get, is never bad.
It's not like he doesn't carry it. It's just the material doesn't work.
No, I mean, there's only so much you can do to carry it, right?
And also, once again, I'm already out at this point when he is Wolverine and still has his memories. I can't deal with it.
Mm.
And again, not just because you're straying from source material, you're straying from what it obviously was already. And you know that you're gonna. How did I even remotely like this in the theater? Because you know that you're waiting around for the obligatory stupid thing at the end that's gonna somehow take his memories away. And Gavin Hood in his commentary, and I'm sympathetic to some of the crap he had to deal with this movie. I can tell how frustrated he is talking about it, the way it turned out, and I can tell, or I think he even kind of regrets taking the project. I really do, but he's trying to save face so much in that commentary. Like, to use the current vernacular, he's coping hard in that commentary. And when you get to the end, he says, we knew that people seeing this in the theater would expect us to do the obligatory happy ending where Logan and Kayla get back together and make out at the end and everything is fine. And and I knew that I would shock the audience by having Stryker come in with the gun and shoot him when he does. And I'm like, you didn't surprise anyone. We know he has to lose his memories because that's what happens in the other films. Like, we know, we're just waiting around for that to happen. It's ridiculous that he said that.
What if he didn't lose his memories and it happened in a sequel?
Well, and it could, I guess so, because the other thing he says, I don't know, it's like they just think the audience is stupid. And again, I think he is trying to save face and take up for a crap script that he didn't write. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I think that's him being a diplomat, being a politician in that moment. He has gone on record, you know, as early as just 4 years after this movie came out, not like full on disavowing it, but just venting his frustration and wishing it could have been something else.
Mm-hmm. Well, and while we're talking about this, we might as well get to, this is a big reshoot scene. I don't know if he talked about that in his commentary, or if that's something you saw when you were looking into it.
No, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so there was like a whole other fight with Wolverine and the Blob in a grocery store.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's still in the game. That's where his boss is, which is a way better fight for the Blob. He's like in a grocery store eating things. But
Dan's Den, I'm just going to fundamentally disagree with this. He says, to be fair, Brian Cox's southern accent was barely there. I think it was as thick as it ever is when they're not like making a really big deal out of his being from the South, but there are lines written for him because he has a southern accent. This version of Stryker would not have that line he has toward the beginning of X2 with Kelly, who is, of course, actually Mystique, when he says, sucking on your mama's tit at Woodstock. Like, that's a southern thing to say. This guy's not going to say that. Mm-hmm. See, sorry, I'm not with you on that. Oh, he just called him Blob. Except he didn't call him Blob.
Right after he called him fat.
Well, he has way worse insults there. Like, so Fred Dukes goes after him because he thinks he says Blob when he says Bob, which is one of those, like, cute CW puns that just drives me nuts. But he doesn't lose it when he says the thing that ate Fred Dukes. Like, that's not worse?
Or he just straight up called him fat.
Maybe he didn't hear him say that.
Yeah. But, like, why is the Blob even in this movie? Besides, the Blob is a big X-Men character we haven't done yet.
Yeah. Well, Austin, the answer to that is they chose many of the characters in this movie by way of lotto balls.
No, of course.
You know, they just
Gambit.
They just reached in and they got the Blob and Gambit and someone named Emma Frost. I guess we'll look her up and see what her power is. Oh, the wiki said something about diamonds.
Oh, well, she doesn't seem important. Let's make her Cuckoo Kwaku's sister.
Yeah, let's do that.
I guess I shouldn't say that. That would be Wolverine's sister. Because Wolverine is the Cuckoo Kwaku.
And see, all of those lotto balls had numbers on them, and then they drew a blank one for some reason, and so then they just went, we'll just get Dominic Monaghan to play some guy.
I like Lord of the Rings.
I like Lost.
Also,
I'm actually convinced that they hired him in this because of Lost. Because the only thing he gets to do in this is die tragically. And his death scene in Lost is one of, like, the big iconic scenes in that show. Mm. Although I don't know if it's happened yet by now. I think it has. But, okay, I could be wrong about that.
Oh my god, Sabretooth looks awful.
It looks so bad. Also, have we been counting Sabretooth and Wolverine running at each other? Because I think we're at 2 now.
We haven't, but yes. Also, every time Sabretooth runs like that in this movie, it looks dumb.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it looks awful. But I was going to mention before, but we were kind of talking over it. That first Cyclops scene is so inserted at random, where it's like while editing, they were clearly like, we have the Cyclops scene that should probably go somewhere. It just goes here, I guess. It's so just weird and just bad editing, I think.
Well, I wanted to complain about that scene too, because Cyclops' teacher sucks and needs to be fired. Cyclops' teacher uh, is like sends him to detention because he says he has a headache
Yeah.
and because he won't take his sunglasses off. And I'm like, this is really lazy writing, right? You're telling me this is the first time they've had this conversation?
I was about to say, yeah,
Like, Cyclops can't take his glasses off. She's like, take your glasses off. She doesn't even say, like, I've asked you 100,000 times. They act like it's the first time it's ever happened.
Well, he woke up this morning, got himself a gun, and then learned that he could shoot lasers out of his eyes. That was how his morning went. And then he put sunglasses on, and it fixed it.
The reveal when we finally get it, that which was earlier, but that Sabretooth has been working for Stryker the whole time, and that none of this was of his own volition, really. I mean, like, yeah, he is mad at Wolverine for leaving him. It's a really one-dimensional sort of motivation. But when you get that reveal, it immediately makes him even less interesting than he was in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's supposed to be, look how great of a master manipulator Stryker. You know who Stryker is in this?
Who's that?
He's Jason Wynn.
Pretty much.
And then if you go to comics, he's also Mammon. But he's Jason Wynn.
So is this the worst master manipulator plot in a superhero movie?
No, it's second to Spawn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe it's tied with Spawn.
I feel like this is worse than Spawn, but I don't know.
Well, both of... Okay, it's more convoluted than Spawn, but both of them make a character really, really stupid in order to make it work. And I guess you could say this one is worse because the character that it makes stupid is the protagonist, who's the guy you're supposed to be rooting for and really care about. And the person that it makes most stupid in Spawn is actually Jason Wynn, because he's being manipulated by Violator to have a bomb in him.
Yeah, at least Sabretooth didn't manipulate Stryker into having a bomb, an adamantium bomb.
There's also a deleted scene that implies that Sabretooth came back and killed Blob, and I have no idea why they cut that, because it was like 20 seconds.
Oh, I mean, I guess you don't really need it. But like, it also doesn't. It neither adds nor takes away from anything.
Well, I have an amusing theory, which is a lot of the characters that Sabretooth kills. Well, okay, at least, what's his face? The teleporting guy. I can't remember his name.
William.
Yeah, I forget his character name. But
I think it's Wraith, John Wraith.
That's right, Wraith. That guy gets his powers taken and given to Deadpool so that he can teleport like a Mortal Kombat character. But maybe some of the other people that he kills, Deadpool also gets their powers. Would have been cool if Deadpool had like electricity powers, like Dominic Monaghan. But
and he was just really fat.
But I was going to say, my theory is maybe they were worried that the audience would think Deadpool was going to getting gigantically fat powers. Like he turns into Weird Al from the Fat video.
Hey, he turns into Kung Fu Panda.
Deadpool, you ain't fat. You ain't nothing.
Hi, Gambit. Remember when Taylor Kitsch was a thing that Hollywood tried to make happen?
Yeah, he was even like a lesser what's his name, the guy that played Anakin Skywalker, Hayden Christensen. Yeah.
See, I was gonna say if we had Sam Worthington in an X-Men movie, we would have had the Holy Trinity of them in X-Men movies, because you have Taylor Kitsch in this, and then Ty Sheridan in Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix.
I was gonna ask you a question.
Yes.
Would you rather be watching? And by the way, I'm gonna ask you a question you can't answer. Are you ready?
Okay.
Would you rather be watching this or Jumper right now? You can't answer it.
I can't answer
It
it.
can't be
You're right.
done.
That is the unanswerable question.
AMC says in the film Sabretooth tells Wraith that he already killed the Blob. Okay, but I'm thinking they didn't want to show the scene where he walks toward him so the audience wouldn't later be like, "Oh, is Deadpool gonna have Blob power?" Also, what was Fred Duke's power? Like,
He was just super strong.
Was he super strong before he was fat?
Yeah, remember there's like that whole thing where he punches the tank shell?
Oh, that's right. Okay. So his
Oh, William, no, you had that boom boom
William.
pow, but now you're dead.
You just call him William?
Yeah. That's what Noah on Discord calls him, and I think it's really funny. Sabretooth, where is the love now?
So I want to complain that this is like the first class thing that will happen later where you have the like uh obligatory expendable black guy, but we have killed a bunch of other people already, so I guess it doesn't really fall into that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dominic Monaghan, with what you're saying, if he's that powerful, he is the Darwin.
That's true. Well, he'd have to be, right? Like being able to, turn off and on all those lights and make a train go around and stuff. Like it's hard to say just how far his powers go because we never see him turn on anything more powerful than like a 60-watt light bulb. But if he can turn on so many of them,
I guess theoretically you could maybe mess with like the electricity in your brain.
sure. Which there's a lot of precedent for that in comic stuff with characters with those powers and in an extra media set. There's a small little character that does that. But couldn't he even like mess with traffic lights and just cause all kinds of haywire and havoc? Like,
oh yeah. Here we go. They're gonna run at each other again.
Here we go. This is at least the third time, I think.
The drinking game of this movie is take a shot every time they run at each other, and every time you get Victor or Jimmy.
Yeah, or if they'd left that deleted scene in, then you could even have a drinking game for every time Stryker comes up with another stupid way to make Wolverine lose his memories. Can you believe the way they almost teased us with that?
That's ridiculous.
That legitimately would have been the worst thing in this movie, I think. Just the sheer number of times it happens.
And if you want to kill yourself, drink every time a shot looks fake.
Well, and speaking of killing yourself, there are some kind of like okay thematic ideas on paper that they just come up with the like the most contrived and not character driven ways to get to. So the idea that Hood throws out in his commentary with that deleted scene is we thought it might be interesting if a guy that can't die has a like metaphorical suicide where like he dies by intentionally losing his memories because you are a sum of your experiences. And like on paper that's fine. Mm-hmm. For a different movie with a different character. Because that's just really eye-rolly to me to do retroactively as your Weapon X movie. Is like Wolverine was going to give up his memory, like tragically sacrifice his memories because losing his memories is the big thing that Wolverine does. Yeah, this is hilarious.
It's so bad.
It cracks me up. It doesn't even look horrible. It's just funny.
It's just straight out of a cartoon.
For people not watching, we're talking about when he slashes the ladder or the scaffolding.
Mm-hmm. People are talking about how they like Taylor Kitsch's Gambit in this movie. How do you feel about Gambit in this?
I'm going to put him in the category of decent picks that, but in his case, maybe a decent pick, but I don't get to see him do enough that I can really make a call with it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It reminds me of Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic and Doctor Strange 2, where I remember when that came out, people were like, "Oh, like look, he could have been a good reader. Oh, look, he would have been an awful read." Well, I just kind of look at it and go, there's not enough there for me to even really have an opinion.
Yeah, he seemed to have some presence and delivered his 5 lines of dialogue fine.
Yeah, and obviously Gambit's in this a little bit more,
Right.
but like he's fine.
But just like with really every other character in this movie, it's like B-grade TV dialogue. It's just not enough to. I can't answer that question.
No, exactly.
It's a math problem with not enough information.
When he like turns and smiles, I guess those are the moments where you're like, "Oh, that's pretty good," I guess.
How is Stryker going to explain this murder of a 5-star general?
By murdering more generals. I don't know. It just operates on, well, he's an evil master manipulator in the government. He can get away with anything, I guess.
He's just so good at this.
He's just, well, as we've talked about it,
we've seen example after example of how he lives in a world where everyone is too stupid for him not to be able to move them around on a chessboard.
The worst part is he's also stupid.
Yeah. No, he's a complete idiot. Like, why would you make an indestructible weapon like that just to build another indestructible weapon? Like, I mean, unless there was no other way to get there, and then you have a way built in to immediately kill him, or you know for sure you can control him. But, like, he didn't look like he had much of a plan with Wolverine. What was he gonna do with Weapon Axe? And also, doesn't it completely undercut the idea of Weapon X that all he is a stepping stone to Weapon 11? Like, I get the whole Magneto, like, amusing line from the first 2 movies of, like, you think it's always about you, isn't it? Like, yeah, this is your Wolverine movie. It should be more about him.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that. Well, it's that thing of, but isn't that scarier? We have Weapon 11. He's like the bad guy. He's one more, but like they're already planning him before. I don't know.
Well, the way you do that is
he's made after Wolverine escapes, and they're like, "Oh, we lost."
That's what I was going to say.
Make a new one.
He loses his memory after the first act. You do the whole feral Wolverine thing, and then time passes, and when we come into the third act, they've now made something they can't control that can kill him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how you do it.
It's really not hard to do some of this better. And you start by getting rid of the really crappy soap opera stuff.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier...
And I realize that X-Men is about soap opera, but this is a bridge too far. Like,
when you mentioned earlier about Deadpool with the adamantium skeleton thing, and I was pretty sure he had it, that shot just confirmed that he does. He does have an adamantium skeleton.
Okay, so they had to do the experiment on Wolverine to prove that it can work, and then they give Deadpool his healing factor, and then they put it in him, and then he's indestructible. Okay, so I will concede that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was pretty sure that was the case, but I wasn't entirely sure, and yeah, that.
And then the explanation for why they don't use Sabretooth is kind of random and thrown out, but I guess it's okay. I don't know. I'm just not sure why they're playing it like Sabretooth's healing factor is weaker than Logan's, but Stryker can convince Logan that the only way to beat the guy with the not as good healing factor is to become indestructible. That part of it is still really stupid.
I think they just need a moment where we see that his healing factor is stronger. Because the way it is it's just a throwaway line, because
I think
Sabretooth doesn't have an adamantium skeleton, so that's the reason.
Yeah, no, you're right about that, and I think some of it is also they're trying to come up with any extra flimsy motivation for why Sabretooth is going as far as he's going.
How easy would it have been to, like, in one of those scenes where
he's got to be jealous of his brother.
Yeah, one, how easy would it have been in one of the scenes where they're fighting together to have like both of them get shot and Wolverine gets up first because it heals faster?
I'm sorry, I missed some of that. Can you say that again?
I just said in the scenes when they're working together, how easy would it have been to have a moment where they're both shot like simultaneously and Wolverine gets up faster because
Yeah,
his healing
absolutely.
factor is better? Like just to visually show that.
No, that wouldn't have been hard at all.
Hmm.
And don't get me wrong with the whole manipulation thing. I it still could have been a manipulation plot. It just didn't have to be a grand master plan thing. I and I don't mean to keep repeating myself, but you just put Wolverine in a more desperate place at the beginning, and all you have to do is have Stryker come to him and go, I've got a way to give you purpose," and then he I just isn't told everything. It's weird that here Stryker tells him how much it's going to hurt and how terrible it's going to be.
Hmm.
Wouldn't the way you would manipulate him be to not give him any of that information and just go like, sign on the dotted line, don't look at the fine print, and then I he gives him the animanium, and then he loses his memory, and then he's feral, and he just freaks out. Like, it's not hard to come up with that manipulation.
Hmm. Absolutely. And then this whole faking her death thing is really contrived and only works because it's in a movie
Yeah.
where, like, I mean, for one thing, I feel like Wolverine would be able to smell that the blood isn't
Can
hers.
he not smell fake blood? Or even blood that's not hers? Like, maybe it's somebody else's blood, maybe it's animal blood. I don't know what it is that Sabretooth sprinkles on her.
Well, it's just he had like a blood baggie, so I would think it's just like blood bank blood.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
then
and they've been murdering a
also,
lot of people, so they have access to lots of blood.
this is where, it's a movie, so you gotta let it go. But like, he also couldn't tell that she had no cuts,
Yeah.
wasn't bleeding or anything, was just covered in blood.
No, you're right. That's the second place where he's made to look like a complete moron. So I realize that this movie is more or less retconned,
Mhm.
but I had this thought for the first time today. I think maybe I've said this somewhere else, but I don't think I had this thought before. Which is, we got the stupid idea at the end of this that Wolverine's memories won't come back, even though his healing factor works for everything else. So it's this idea that it it works for physical stuff, but for what? And it's so dumb that Stryker somehow knows that will work. I've always thought that was the most ridiculous thing with this movie. And it was an afterthought. They tacked it on at the end, just trying to come up with some way to make that happen. Because they decided not to go full tilt and have Wolverine have Stryker erase his memories, and and I'll say this real quick too. If they had actually gone all the way with that, then you wouldn't have even had the Deadpool fight at the end. So they couldn't do that. They had to like sneak the idea in there and then not go all the way with it.
Mhm.
But if his healing factor can't, I like save his memory, the way he time travels in Days of Future Past makes no sense.
Uh, Sorry, I was distracted by what was happening. The way that what happens in Days of Future
The way
Past doesn't make sense.
the way his mind time travels cannot happen in Days of Future Past,
Oh, okay, yeah,
because they have that whole explanation that, and it was always flimsy and stupid there too, but they have
yeah.
that whole explanation where he says, like, where Wolverine says, what if, and I don't know how he knows this either, but what if your mind has some way of snapping back? I'm like, your healing factor couldn't save your memory from Weapon X.
Mhm.
Why would it allow that?
Yeah,
They're running again.
there it happened. Look at these feral animals.
They're so feral. I
Wow.
just feel like Sabretooth in this is a little closer to what Wolverine himself should have been.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Kinda. I mean, he's still one dimensional. I still don't get why he becomes, and especially in comparison to Logan, so enamored with violence. Like, why does he have so much more of a bloodlust than Wolverine does? Did we need to spend longer in Origin at the beginning?
Logan, you are Kwaku Laku. Remember the moon, Logan.
Yeah, so in the other version, we would have already had the thing where he tried to erase his memory by now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so bizarre. I mean, I guess it's a good thing they cut it.
It's a really good thing they cut it. But I mean, I was gonna say how much worse could you make the movie? It would have made it worse because, like I said, it becomes the most insulting thing. It's this dumb gimmick of the audience can't wait to see how he loses his memory. No, he should have lost his memory 50 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
Bob the Hunt had a $10 super chat. Thanks so much for the support. He says, in the first X-Men, they say Logan remembers nothing. But going off this movie, he should remember waking up next to a destroyed tower and some random Cajun guy saying the kids are safe.
He was just on some really bad acid.
That was a nice pull. I like that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. No, I've always thought that too, and that's just a funny image that he wakes up and he's like, "What's going on?" And not only that, but like it's not just some tower. It's what is this called? The 7 Mile Island?
3 Mile Island.
Yeah, thank you. I was like, it's not coming to me. There we go.
Well, we're not there yet, but one of my big questions about the end is when Deadpool's head is flailing around inside of that tower, are we seeing it happen in slow motion? Because the way the like Cyclops beam goes through that, his head would have to be moving really slow.
No.
But it doesn't look slow motion. I'm not sure what's happening.
Here's the greatest Emma Frost ever put to screen. We can all agree.
In Gavin Hood's commentary, he refers to her as Diamond Girl. Mm. He's not even aware of Emma Frost as a character. And to be fair, he was a guy that was hired on for... And ain't this always the story, right? I mean, I've not seen his other work besides Ender's Game, which he made 4 years after this.
Oh, no.
Which I liked okay. Nobody else seemed to have. But,
And now Duel of the Fates starts playing.
Yeah, well, and he's going to die the same way, too. Yeah, no, you're right. And he is just Darth Maul, right?
100%.
He doesn't talk, and...
He even has the people behind him that go off onto their own little side adventure. He's like, I got this.
Once he becomes what everybody calls Barakapool, he is mostly played by a stunt guy that's just hired to do this, just like with Darth Maul.
Okay, I wasn't sure how that worked, if this was Ryan Reynolds or what.
So the close-ups are Ryan... What happened was Ryan Reynolds was working on 2 other movies at the time.
That makes sense.
They couldn't get him for this scene. So months later, they brought him in to do all the close-ups. And so some of the fighting actually is him, but most of it is this really good, like, martial arts stunt guy that they were able to get to do all the flips and stuff.
Yeah, and obviously I know that's not Ryan Reynolds, but okay, that makes sense.
But like a lot of it's not Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he gets cut in half at the end, just like Darth Maul.
Well, he gets his head cut off.
Oh, okay. No, that's true. It's not in half, but he gets his head cut off. And then,
it falls down a big pit.
And then, yeah, it's all down a big pit. And then if you take Clone Wars as canon, they also both survive it.
No, because we retconned this, and this Deadpool just dies instantly when that door opens.
That's true. He gets killed by real Deadpool at the end of his second movie.
And then Deadpool says, "We're gonna make a third movie one day, Wolverine."
AMC says it is pretty funny how Gambit says the kids are safe after they just take off with some bald guy on a helicopter.
Yeah, and bald people are like the last ones you would trust with children, so I don't know why he's cool with that.
Especially bald people with uncanny valley faces.
Yeah, that aren't even real.
He shows up, he looks like something out of Tron Legacy. I don't know why anybody trusts that.
So do you know anything about X-Men Origins Magneto, Cap?
Refresh my memory.
No, the only reason I asked is...
And I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about that title, and we haven't gotten there yet. But yeah, go ahead.
That movie also would have ended with a climax where it was Magneto and Professor X had to break into a facility to rescue a bunch of children.
I did not know that. I didn't know that they ever got that far. Oh, you know what? No, there is a script for that, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
I forgot.
Yeah, the writers sued First Class because I think the main thing that they sued over was Magneto's hunting Nazis after World War II. But like, it's like one of the most obvious things to do with Magneto. I don't know.
There's some really bad one-liners in this movie.
Yes. There's just some really bad in this movie.
And there's a lot of just, like, stuff that doesn't follow. You're like, I'm not even sure why you said that, but okay. What makes the Mortal Kombat of this even worse is just how much of it is shot in side profile, like a 2D fighter. Well,
and this is the best sequence to watch with unfinished effects. And there's
I bet!
Online.
I bet. You know what? I kind of want to watch that version of it.
Yeah, I'll send it to you after the rewind because it's one of the funniest things to watch.
Can you imagine being the man who leaked that and going to prison for a year? Because he did. He went to prison for a year.
No, he literally went to prison for our sins. Like, in a way, he is a cinematic Jesus.
Like, 15 years later, that guy still on a daily basis has got to think, I went to prison for a year over that piece of crap.
I hope Ryan Reynolds gave him tickets to the premiere of all the Deadpool movies.
I hope so, too!
He probably didn't, because obviously not. But, like, that would be amazing, right?
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong. He broke the law. He should have gone to jail. But at the same time, he's kind of a hero.
Well, it's like Norm Macdonald said,
he's not really a hero.
There's justifiable genocide. There's justifiable leaking or stealing in this case. Both. Like,
look, just remember, piracy is not a victimless crime.
Mm-hmm. The only victim was Tom Rothman, and that's okay.
I've been told that over and over again on Fox DVDs that will not let me skip that screen that sits there for 15 seconds. Okay.
That's one of my favorite shots, too, is when Sabretooth is jumping at Deadpool and he gets lasered, and there's that like moment where he's like, as he flies back.
Okay, can I overthink something?
Go for it.
Okay, so I have a question.
Yes.
When Deadpool uses Wraith's ability and teleports and doesn't immediately show back up, where is he? Did you notice that? Okay, this is that shot. Look how slow it's moving. We see his head flip around real fast, and then we look at this, and it's like it's on a rotor or something. But yeah, he disappears for a full 4 or 5 seconds, and then he reappears. Is he in subspace? Is he in another dimension? Where is he?
I also like that his skin teleports off first. Like, you see his metal.
You see a skeleton.
Yeah, every time he's like, why?
Does that happen to Will.i.am?
Yeah, does William have to do that?
Do you see his skeleton? If you do it too many times, do you just end up where like your skeleton comes out of subspace, but your skin is still there?
Well, it's because William is so 2008 and Deadpool is so 3000 and late. That's the real reason.
I don't know what that means, but I'm glad you said it.
You're welcome.
I'm glad you said it. I have a question. Why is Gambit in this movie?
To sell toys.
Oh, well, that didn't work out either, I don't think. But
also to show up and say the kids are safe.
The kids are safe. You will not be safe.
The kids will be safe. The bald men will be safe.
Chewbacca's Lover, did I miss you guys talking about X-Men Origins Magneto? I mean, we barely brought it up. I think it's funny that didn't become a sub-series, because now this movie will forever just be referred to as X-Men Origins, and that was supposed to be like a Star
Like a
Wars
whole
story.
tie-in. Yeah.
At least 2 of those got made.
And I think the third one would have been Storm, if I remember right. Like I think there was even plans for a third one.
Wow.
But like I don't think that made it to scripting.
If they were popular, they probably would have tried to give as many of them as they could have one of those. And that just seems like oversaturation to me. You know?
Well, and then would you do sequels? Like, if this was really big, instead of The Wolverine, would it have been X-Men Origins Wolverine 2?
I would not think so.
I mean, I would hope not, but...
I even said
Rothman
back
was
at the
the head of the
time this
studio.
sounded like a... I'm sorry, what was it?
I said, I would hope so, but Tom Rothman was the head of the studio. Like, they're not great. They're not smart.
I said even when this came out that X-Men Origins Wolverine sounds like a direct-to-video movie title.
Yeah, no, it does.
It's not as bad as Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Well, I was gonna say, even at this point, you kind of have like the good side and the bad side, because Batman Begins sounds like one of those like books for children. It's like the tie-in thing,
Yeah, it does.
where it's like Batman Begins. This is how it happened, is it? And then the next one's like Batman and his friends.
They should have called it Batman Origins Batman.
Batman Origins, Batman's butler, Alfred.
Oh my god. I'm still shocked by it every time it happens.
I wish the MCU looked like this. I wish we started with Avengers Origins Iron Man.
And I don't even mean in the way that Gavin Hood said I should have been shocked by it, where I thought Wolverine was gonna live happily ever. Shut up.
Yeah, get out of here, Gavin.
But when he shows up, when air quotes Stryker shows up, because Stryker is my favorite villain in these movies, and he gets to be the villain again 2 movies after X2, and this is what we do to him. And when he comes in and starts shooting, I'm like, I in the theater, even though somehow I like this movie better than I do now, I still just couldn't even believe what I was watching. With like his memories won't grow back. How do you even know that?
Well,
How do you even know for sure an adamantium bullet will kill him? And then what's funny is there's even weird arguments about it where he says that like it's for the audience early on. It's like, oh, only an adamant or somebody else does. Only an adamantium bullet can kill him. And then there's that woman later that's like nothing can kill him.
Mm-hmm. Well, my question as a kid was always, okay, so now that means Wolverine has like a spot like that where there is no adamantium on his skull. So does that mean at that point any bullet can pierce through and like remove his memories? As long as you hit like that exact spot into his brain? And then would the bullet then be stuck in his brain because it wouldn't be able to push it out because of the skull?
So Jason could not deal with this whole thing, and I alluded to it earlier with a joke, but I was watching this with Jason, whose just mouth was on the floor the whole time. He knew nothing about this.
I didn't realize he'd never seen this.
You should have seen his face when we got to Gambit. Because, Gambit's one of his favorite characters.
Because he loves Gambit, yeah. Look at this awful CGI.
They go, it's so bad. They go Remy LeBeau, and Jason just starts going, no.
No, wait.
But when Kayla, when they revealed that Kayla's been holding his Stryker's pant leg the whole time, Jason goes, okay, what about that? She's not touching him. And I was like, well, I mean, they showed that earlier where she had that guy by the lapel and it worked through that. And he goes, that's not how Rogue works.
No, it's so stupid. Oh my god, look at how bad this green screen of them running away is.
You know what else?
What else?
Taylor Kitsch here, in that one shot that was probably another reshoot, he looks like 2 years older than the rest of the movie in that shot. I don't know if it's just like his hairstyle changed or something, but like he walks into frame and I'm like, how much time passed for you? Like, was when you came to this island, was there somehow like a time distortion where time moved differently for you?
Well,
time dilation?
I have 3 words for you, Cap. X-Men Origins Gambit.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
where we would have found out.
Well, what's funny is they almost made that movie.
Oh, of
It wouldn't have
course.
been called that, but that was one of the last projects that was left on the cutting room floor at Fox. They almost made that movie.
Well, they made, yeah, with Channing Tatum. And what's really funny is that I don't know if you remember, Cap, but in 2015 they did like the Universal Dark Universe thing where they had all the Universal monsters that they were gonna do in one
Yeah.
photo. They did that with Channing Tatum as Gambit, the new X-Men actors, the new FF, and Deadpool. Boy, that worked out for them.
Maybe we
At
should
least
never
they got
announce
one,
anything.
at least they got one out of those.
Matthew Bass, oh god, it looks so creepy.
Yeah, so
With
bad.
Professor X's face. And of course, and I get that it was 15 years ago and we hadn't done a lot of de-aging yet, but Gavin Hood in his commentary is just going on about how great the people that the effects guys that did that face were, and I'm like, I don't see it, man. It's hard to look at. Even in a theater, that was hard to
It's
look at.
worse than the X3 one.
It would have been better if they just didn't even try. If they just let him look older.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Just give him a hat. Call it good.
Just give him a baseball cap so you know he's young. And one of those big number one fingers.
AMC, there are funny things in this film to be sure, but I just think most of what people hate about it mainly revolves around their take on Deadpool. Sorry, it jumped down on me. On Deadpool and the animated Bullet, which just doesn't bother me.
I mean, I don't like either of those things. My biggest issue with this movie is it's incredibly boring.
Yeah.
Like, I am not a big enough Deadpool person to care about what they did to Deadpool.
And I wasn't either at the time. I honestly knew almost nothing about that character when this came out.
And the adamantium bullet thing's dumb, but like, there's a ton of dumb stuff in this movie. Like, how do they not see him? There's literally cops right there. Like, how does he get away from that?
Yeah, I mean, it ends up being, like you said, a giant mess and a lot of stuff piled on top of each other. Where it's like, I don't understand why
And
certain characters are doing things. The
if the
manipulation
action
plot
was
doesn't make any
good,
sense.
and if the action was good, like maybe I'd be like, okay, but like at least it looked cool. Like it doesn't even have that. The entire movie looks really fake.
And then it really feels like we just rushed out to me, where it's like the movie feels
Yeah.
tired by the end, where it's like we got to get a crane shot, just get the hell out of here.
Hmm.
Or not a crane shot, but a bird's eye view shot. Just go.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I get that we have this stupid right before the credit scene, but so explain to me how Stryker is snapped out of what Kayla told him to do by this, and how do her powers work? Like, how long does it last?
Well, what's weird is that when oh no, I guess you said walk until your feet bleed and then keep walking. Okay.
And then they just show up and he stops, and then it's like we're setting up something here. Because they're like, oh, we want to talk to you about the general you obviously murdered. And then when we get to X2, he's working for the White House. You know what? You might be onto something with X-Men Origins Wolverine 2. Because Gavin Hood gets real kind of snide about this in the commentary, where he's like, look, I realize that Wolverine doesn't have his jacket at the end and that Gambit gets it, but I don't know, maybe at some point we'll meet back up with Gambit and find out what happens to the jacket.
Oh, also, so you kind of talked to me about this off camera, but you were like, oh, retroactively, maybe that's not Emma Frost. I just noticed her in the credits. She's credited as Kayla's sister / Emma.
Emma, yeah. So I was gonna tell you that. So
Oh, okay.
the loophole is they didn't give her a last name, and the only source for retroactively she's not Emma Frost is a Singer.
Oh, okay.
So
gotcha.
Singer says it later, and I didn't tell you about all that off camera because we were just texting.
Yeah.
But it is I mean, it's not official because it's not actually in a movie, but like obviously First Class retcons it. But Singer does at some point in an interview come right out and go, that wasn't Emma Frost. But that's him just making that decision later arbitrarily.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I said when you and I were talking, retroactively. Because clearly here, they thought she was Emma Frost.
Maybe this is Emma before she dies, before Days of Future Past. She went from being like an attractive lady to a really frumpy looking one because she was imprisoned.
You know what it's almost exactly like?
What's that?
I was that girl in Man of Steel, Jenny, was her last name Olsen? You don't know.
Oh, that character was totally Jenny Olsen, and then they
got cold feet.
They got cold feet. Thank you.
They got cold feet. It's the same thing.
100%.
It's not a gender switch, but it's the same thing.
X-Men Origins Wolverine 2 opens with Emma Frost getting shot in the head.
But I will say, I've always been on the bandwagon with the Animanium Bullet is stupid. Partly because of the prequelitis thing. Where it's like, of course, because he's not having his memory is the big thing we know about him when we first meet him. We have to make that a big, like, grand, again, convoluted thing. But also because this is also part of prequelitis. I hate it when the audience knows something is going to happen, so therefore a character knows it'll work. I can't deal with that.
Well, it makes sense when you think about it that you get shot in the head and it takes away your brain memories.
Yeah, but how would he know how the healing factor works? And also,
because
how could
he knows
you
everything, Cap?
And also, how could you be sure that that he would lose all of his memories? I mean, it's
the exact right memories.
It's like we know exactly how amnesia works. I mean, it's just preposterous. It might be one of the dumbest things anybody's ever said in anything. His memories won't grow back.
I mean, that specific line is so bad.
It's one of the worst things anybody's ever said in anything. I want to put it on t-shirts.
You should have it on like a baseball cap.
I should. We should do a show at some point where one of us is wearing a hat or a shirt that says "There are no exits that way, Wolverine," and then the other one has a shirt that says "His memories won't grow back."
Well, I want a T-shirt that says "I'm with," and then an arrow pointing this way, and then his memory won't grow back.
And then there's a third shirt with an arrow pointing to the first one that says "There are no exits that way, Wolverine." Exactly. It's like a loop.
It's the Wolverine cycle, or the Stryker cycle, I guess.
The Kayla character doesn't work at all.
No, and she's really annoying. I do not like that character.
No, and that's a place where I don't think that even the casting works.
No, I agree.
And also, it does watch really retroactive that she's being blackmailed like that, because she's almost, like, without his realizing, teasing or taunting Wolverine about the fact that she's undercover. Like, she wouldn't tell him that story if there wasn't all that underlying meaning for her. You know, it almost watches like mean. Until you realize she didn't want to do any of that, and then we try to artificially redeem her at the end.
Shh. That's what I have to say to you. Oh, I guess he doesn't do the finger.
Oh yeah, he couldn't because he's a disembodied head.
And you know what Disney Plus immediately went to is you may also like?
What's that?
X-Men First Class with just a giant picture of Emma Frost.
That's awesome. Austin, I'm going to ask you to make me an edit. I do this sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll think of a brilliant edit, but I'm too lazy and busy to do it myself. So I'm going to ask Austin to make this edit.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure he'll want to do it too. Are you ready? Okay. I want you to do an edit that's that after credit scene, and then it cuts to the thing at the end of all the Simpsons credits that goes dun 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 dun.
Should it just have that music, or should it cut to specifically that shot?
Specifically that shot. It's just Wolverine goes, or it's just Deadpool. He goes shh, dun 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 dun.
Okay, that is too good. I got to do that.
I'll post it on our channel if you want me to.
Yeah, if you want to, I can send it to you. It'll take like 2 minutes to
Or you
make
can
that.
put it on yours if you want to. Yeah, I've got another edit like that I'm working on. I'll just post them both within a week or something.
Hell yeah.
Hey, let's go to he's Kite Man.
He's what?
You just said hell yeah.
Oh no!
Austin, I'm gonna give you a massive compliment.
Mm-hmm.
I've done an unfortunate number of commentaries on this movie, and this is the most fun I've ever had having to talk about it.
Oh, that's good. This went a lot better than my watch party did. The watch party was very much like everyone well, except for John. John was like, "I like this movie," and then the rest of us being like, "Ah."
I'm sorry, John. We don't mean to be mean. Well, Austin maybe does. Austin's cool when it comes to John. I was gonna ask you something. I can't remember what it was. Well, anyway, let's go on to tweet length reviews.
Yep. Here, I'll pull up the Discord ones.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna ask you if you don't mind revealing this.
Mm-hmm.
Since you did that watch party last week, and I did bite the bullet and watch this movie twice this week. Did you give it another watch, or were you going off that watch party?
So I went back and forth on it, and I was like, I really should watch it again, but like I really don't want to. And then, unfortunately, my I don't want to won out, and I was like, I feel like I got enough of it while watching it in that watch party, and I've seen this movie a million times. That like it wouldn't be an issue, and I don't think it really was doing this.
No, you were fine. But
if everyone wants,
I didn't mean to expose you
me for that. Go right ahead.
Apologies for exposing you.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
You've been exposed.
You might as well just staple my mouth shut, really.
No, nobody would be able to tell. Well, and I mean, the thing is, like, you always have the loophole of this show was always supposed to be solo.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can be like, look, you didn't want me here in the first place.
Yeah, no, exactly. This specific show is meant to be solo, like Han Solo, with a duo. But the original Super Rewind is solo.
Oh my god, you're gonna give this like a convoluted prequelitis thing. It's Superhero Rewind, a Star Wars story? That doesn't even make any sense, Austin.
X-Men Origins, a Star Wars story, Wolverine.
X-Men Origins, Superhero Rewind 2. All right, let's do tweet length reviews. Do we have any on Discord, sir?
Yes, we have 4.
As always, quick plug for Discord. If you'd like to become a Patreon producer for Superhero Rewind, patreon.com/geekvolution. You get a lot of cool perks at the $10 tier. You get to help us choose movies for the show. You get to hang out with us once a month, thereabouts, on Discord. At just the $5 tier, though, you can also do tweet length reviews. And we're going to read those right now. We do those both through Patreon and Discord. And Austin will do the Discord side first. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so first we have John, who I already said liked it, but he said, a flawed movie with mistakes, but I find it to be one of the better bad X-Men movies. Hugh Jackman and Liev Schreiber carry it. Rating hero. Next we have MattBat68.
I'm curious to see if we get any other heroes on this.
MattBat68 says really stupid and not in a fun way, with an exclamation point too, so you know he means it. An embarrassingly bad script and even worse special effects. Rating Nemesis. Hot Soup. Pretty cool intro followed by a disaster of a film. Do yourself a favor, watch the intro war sequence, then skip the rest. Rating Nemesis. And then Tom, who says, here's my excerpt length review. A bloated tale, but gave us Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, so that's a plus. Hero.
Well, and I mean, it's only Ryan Reynolds because he was pushing really hard to get that character,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, and
so
he's only in this movie because they were like, "Hey, you want to be Deadpool, and we're putting Deadpool in this movie, and either you're in it or we find someone else."
yeah, like I don't think you can really credit the movie for that. Like he was trying to get that movie made,
Hmm.
and eventually did.
Yeah, no, he was basically strong-armed into being in this movie.
The timing with all of it is kind of interesting. Like this is all a coincidence, but '03 apparently he's trying to get that movie made, and then 6 years later he gets to be a version of Deadpool in this movie, and it's terrible. And then he finally gets his Deadpool movie made 7 years after that. Like it's almost equal distance in between.
Hmm. If that's true, because I don't know, I always heard the Blade Trinity thing, but maybe that's not true. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look a little deeper on it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
Because
hard to say.
admittedly, that's just a thing I read on a wiki, and I don't know what the actual source was. So
Because I've also heard,
grain of salt on it, but I that's what I read today.
yeah, well, I've also heard different people that were like on with Blade Trinity that were like, "Oh, you're basically Deadpool. Here's Deadpool comics," and Ryan Reynolds was like, "Oh, yes." So, like, it's not even like I have a fully consistent story I've always heard, but like, that's the one part where I was like, "Oh, I don't know."
Can I read this?
Yeah.
Okay, so and then I'll do the other tweet link reviews. Again, this is from Wiki, and then I'll figure out what the source is. Deadpool had been developed for his own film by Reynolds and Goyer at New Line Cinema in '03. So like it specifically lists who he was writing the project with. But the
Yeah, I
project
remember
fell
Goyer
apart.
with that.
But the project fell apart as they focused on Blade Trinity and an aborted spinoff. Like what I had always heard was what you're talking about, that he didn't even find out about Deadpool until he was on the set of that movie.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Benoff wrote the character into the script in a manner Jackman described as fun, but would also deviate from some of his traits. Okay, understatement. Uh, I'm trying to see if any of the rest of this is important to what we're talking about here. Okay, so let me look up the source here. Uh, this is from an MTV Movies blog that was written in '08. So let me see if that link still works. Indeed, it does. Deadpool and Gambit, The Long Road to X-Men Origins Wolverine and Beyond. Uh
Pyramid Head and
and his source, sorry, let me mention this. His source in this article is 20th Century Fox executive Jeff Katz.
Pyramid Head makes a good point in the comments
Yeah.
where, and I can't remember when Blade Trinity comes out, so maybe he's wrong and I just don't realize it. But he says Blade Trinity likely shot in '03, so it could be a mix of both.
Yeah, because Trinity comes out in '04.
I couldn't remember. For some reason, I thought it was later, so that's why I was like, But okay, so if that's '04, which means we could
this
have
is
done that.
this is looking more and more credible. I'm trying to find the exact quote in this article, but I don't know if I'm going to find it before this is going to get boring for everyone.
Oh, it's okay. And like I said, it could be a mix of that if that's the case.
Okay, according to Katz, Deadpool's journey to the big screen began around the time where plans were being hashed out for Blade Trinity. So that would have had to be '03. The third installment of the film franchise based on the Vampire Hunter. The film was written and directed by Goyer. Well, we know that, yeah, because that's talking about Trinity. All the way back to Ryan Goyer and I on Blade Trinity, we were trying to put together a deal at New Line for a Deadpool movie, said Katz. We thought the rights were clear and not part of the X-Men universe. So Ryan could play the character and Goyer could write. I can't remember why. I think they wanted to do a Blade spinoff instead, but it didn't come together. Also, they wouldn't have had the rights to it.
But Cap, does that mean we have to do Blade Trinity this year because it's the 10-year anniversary? Or no, 20-year anniversary.
You and I have got to sit down and figure all the anniversaries out.
We just skip over Blade 2 to do that?
That might end up deciding a lot of the movies we do this year, but then we're not going to be able to let the producers pick anything. So
But I mean, that
I don't
would
know if we should go based on all the because there's a lot of them. It turns out, and we've got some we missed last year. Like we were gonna do Hulk last year, we missed it.
we missed. We'll do that in 10 years or 9 years.
What were you gonna say though?
No, I was gonna say I feel like that would only take a handful of weeks if we're like, okay, like here's like a couple we want to do because it's an anniversary. I think it's not like we have to do everything.
Let's figure out how many there are.
All I know is Blade Trinity and Hellboy.
I do think it would be cool now that and by the way, we are officially a weekly for the show now. There may occasionally be an exception when somebody's out of town or whatever, but like we're even trying to move the day, a day ahead when one of us can't make a Friday. Like we're really committed to weekly now, and it would be really cool to get a full-on schedule for the show where like months out we know more or less what we're doing. But even if we did that, Austin, I still would want to make sure that the viewers get to help us pick a lot of them.
Unless we had, because some like we pick based on different things. Because we like one week we'll pick, 1 week we'll do a vote, 1 week we'll do a wheel. Unless we just had like a line of like this is an order of things we want to do, and then we like pepper that in every now and then.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, so we still do wild cards like the week before.
You can even put that in the schedule where it's like wild card.
And then if somebody does a $30 request, that would take up a wild card.
Yeah.
That'd be the way to do it.
There you go.
Okay, let me read
this is interesting to no one, but there we go.
Yeah, well, you and I never see each other. When else are we going to have this conversation? I'm being facetious. We do like 3 shows a week. Okay. Here are the other tweet length reviews. These are from Patreon. Justin Hayes, that's Back Studios. This was my first introduction to X-Men back at the now defunct drive-in theater at my old hometown, back when I thought it was pretty cool, but a little too edgy. Wow, as if I shouldn't have been watching and couldn't help but like it anyway. I can kind of see the age she was at, how you'd be there in 09. Now I realize I really shouldn't have been watching it, and that maybe I can attribute a couple flunked tests to the brain cells I lost as a child. Though I do admit there's a small part of me that now enjoys the aptly assessed edginess in spite of myself. The movie is a supervillain, but to me it's a charming one. That was a longer than tweet link there, back. Joshua Davis. I'm just kidding. What can one say about this but yawn? I'm sorry. Can you say it like Christopher Walken?
Yawn.
Do you remember that from Batman Returns?
When did you say that in Batman Returns? I don't offhand.
I can't remember exactly the scene, but there's a place in Batman Returns where he goes yawn. He says my rating is civilian.
Bored, yawn.
He says my rating is civilian bystander because supervillains and nemesis are actually interesting. He made up his own rating.
Damn.
That's how nothing he is on this movie. Chewbacca's lover, villain. It's bad, really bad. Okay, we're gonna do our ratings now. And Austin,
yes.
with the glowing praise we gave this movie, I'm gonna assume that you are, of course, somewhere between a supervillain and a nemesis.
So I will give this movie a legend. This was all a meme. I love Deadpool, heart chimichangas. No, I give this movie a nemesis. It sucks. It's incredibly hard to sit through and just really boring. That over like any of the plot issues and stuff, that is what kills it. Like that is the reason that it is a nemesis and not a supervillain.
Yeah, and I think a lot about it is just super insulting, and to an audience's intelligence. And then I don't like the way the studio is clearly handcuffing the producers and the director to the point where they made them even do this story for the obligatory everybody's got to get an origin thing. I mean, this is the most egregious example of that, when you've had that character take the lead for 3 teen movies and one of them was partially about the man's origin, and you're still going with that logic. It's just absolutely nuts. Now, and then the thing is so cobbled together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, what was it?
No, I was just going to say, this just makes me want MCU Origins Rocket Raccoon. Now that we already did the origin movie for him in Guardians.
I was going to say, because they already did that. But
Exactly.
by
And then it
Fox's
has
logic...
nothing, and then it's in no way connected to what they did in 3.
Oh, I meant to mention, too, that there was... Gavin Hood mentions this in his commentary, and I told you about it off camera, Austin. There was a lot of talk back and forth, apparently, between the producers and executives and the director about whether or not they should even do the Weapon X sequence at all in the Wolverine origin movie. And the logic was, well, we already saw pieces of it in X2, so it's going to be kind of pointless and dull. So they literally were going to just jump over it and have, like, at the beginning, he's not Weapon X yet, and then we jump over it and he's Weapon X now. They were just going to have time pass. And I'm like, so let me get this straight. You're going to insist that an audience is too dumb and doesn't understand this character enough to do a solo story that's character-driven about him without giving him an origin, and you're not even going to do Weapon X in it?
Wouldn't that be like calling a movie Marvel Origins Spider-Man, and you begin with Peter Parker, and then you just cut to after he's Spider-Man? Or like after he's got the powers?
Yeah, I mean, I always make fun of Homecoming for not having any mention of Uncle Ben, but at least it didn't have the word origin in it. And it wasn't an origin.
Mm-hmm. That's baffling.
Yeah, but that's crazy. Like, what are you guys doing? Sometimes when these executives decide to make all of the decisions, I wish one of them would have the guts to step up and direct it himself.
Yeah.
See what that asshole makes.
Tom Rothman should have directed this and every Sony villain movie.
Yeah, because I guess we kind of danced around that idea, and you said that to me off camera, and I had that thought too. This really is just one of those.
Mm-hmm. No, it is the precursor to those. Like it feels exactly like them. It's got a lot of the same issues. It's boring. The only difference is that this is Hugh Jackman, who is better than any of the leads in those.
That's true. And it also feels like dated and like it should have come out a few years earlier. Like this feels like a early 2000s superhero movie. But we were still, to be fair, getting a few things that still kind of had that flavor.
They kind of holdovers
in this period, because you're only a year after Iron Man and Dark Knight, so the smarter superhero movies can't influence that stuff yet.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I feel like I would be disingenuous to rate this anything but a nemesis, because I said I can't decide if it or Apocalypse is worse, and Apocalypse is at the bottom and absolutely a nemesis. So if they're tied in my mind, I have to give this a nemesis, regardless of which one pisses me off more.
And you know what really pisses me off? This movie.
It's Apocalypse, really. That's the one that really pisses me off.
Oh, okay. No, you know what really pisses me off is Cuckoo Kwaku, and I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah, because we're the ones that got screwed, really.
Mm-hmm.
Austin, would you kindly reveal to everyone what we'll be doing next week?
Yeah, we're doing a double feature next week. We are doing... I'm trying to remember if I have the titles right. It's Hellboy...
I can remember one.
It's Hellboy Sword of Storms and Hellboy Blood and Iron?
Blood and Iron, yeah. Sword and Storms and Blood and Iron, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, the two animated Hellboy movies.
We did a poll for the producers, and Austin and I each picked two movies, or I cheated with that, because with the animated shorter things, we're trying to do double features when we can. But we picked things that we've never seen before. And that was the theme for that poll, and I've never seen those. And I don't think you have either, have you?
Oh, no, I watched them quite a bit.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so for anyone wondering off that, like, we each picked something that we haven't seen, not necessarily that we know that
both of us
haven't.
But yeah. I didn't know that you'd seen those.
Yeah, I used to watch Blood and Iron quite a bit, and I remember not liking Sword of Storms as much, so I'm interested to see how that plays out.
For a second, sorry, good.
No, I was going to say, and if I remember right, I think the main villain is the same as the 2019 movie in Blood and Iron, and I'm interested to see how that looks now.
Well, I'm sure you'll have a little bit more to say about those because I'm not really a big Hellboy fan. And at first, when that kind of dominated the poll, I felt bad because I was like, I cheated and I picked two movies. And then I was like, yeah, but like I picked an Austin pick anyway.
No, I have the ability to vote because I'm a patron and I voted for the Hellboy movie.
Did you
I was
really?
like, yeah, because I've been in a Hellboy mood, so I was like, hell yeah, I want to watch Hellboy.
So I've done I obviously movie reviews for so long that there's just not that much left that anybody would care about that I've not seen. So when I came up with that poll, I suddenly realized while I was looking, like thinking about stuff and looking through stuff, oh, there's like, what can I even put on this poll that would excite anybody? Because a lot of it was going to be sequels to kind of like smaller, almost B movie things. Like I could have picked Darkman 2. I could have picked another Crow sequel. Like there's just not that much, like Swamp Thing 2. There's just not that much laying around that I haven't seen.
Although Swamp Thing 2 does have maybe the greatest opening credits of all time.
Have you seen that?
So I started it and then I forget what it was. I got like caught up with something and didn't finish it. But I started it and the opening credits of that movie are so awesome. And I was like, how have I never heard about this?
Oh, you told me about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize you didn't finish the movie.
Yeah, no, I got to go back and finish it. But
Chewbacca's Lover says they aired on Toonami on Cartoon Network. I didn't realize that. I thought they were straight to DVD in the first place.
that's what I assumed too, because it's got that immediate trinity from those movies, like the Del Toro ones.
So it did the same thing that Tartakovsky's Clone Wars did.
Yeah, I guess so.
Aired on Cartoon Network first.
Oh, pretty cool. No, the new Hellboy trailer has me wanting to reread all the comics, so
yeah, I guess it's sort of timely.
Yeah,
there too. Like I said, I don't even know how qualified I'll be to talk about any of that, but we're doing everything. So here we go.
Yep. Grab your right hand of doom and a glass of orange juice, because here we go.
Watch those for next week, everybody. I don't know if that's streaming anywhere. I'm sure it's not.
It's probably not.
People probably have to rent it. Hopefully it's Hopefully it's even rentable somewhere. I have them on DVD. I've just never seen them.
I was gonna say I think I own the Blood and Iron, but I can't remember if I own both.
I want to say they did a release at some point with both of them, but I don't
maybe that's what I have.
know if I have that.
Because I have it on Blu-ray, so it might be both.
Chewbacca's Lover says they were actually on DVD first. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, everybody, we sure appreciate you. Thanks a lot for watching. Another perk that our Patreon producers get, of course, is dramatically, I will read their names at the end of every Superhero Rewind commentary. And thanks a lot to all of our patrons and super chatters and folks that help keep the train running here on Geekvolution. We appreciate your monetary support, but we also appreciate you just being here and watching. And so thanks to everybody, but especially our patrons and especially our Patreon producers. And I'm going to read their names as soon as I get them all pulled up out here because I haven't done that yet. Hold on.
Oh no,
Austin, say something brilliant.
How do you like them?
Now, you know we don't do that here.
We don't waste good material on X-Men Origins Wolverine. What can I say?
Actually, before I do this, I'm going to make another announcement real quick, Austin.
Okay.
Give me a second. So, next show, and I haven't told you about this yet, so hopefully you're cool with doing it, but I imagine you will be. If not, we can fight about it later. It's cool.
Next.
Our next our next show will be our 25th show. And I've decided that that's a good round number, and maybe we'll do this like every 25 shows. To go ahead and at the end of that show go through our individual rankings, which we'll do real lickety split. We won't spend a lot of time on them. We'll show them on the screen and we'll just read them down 25-1 real quick. I thought about making that its own show, but I don't really want to do that. Like we're not going to get an hour out of that
show. Yeah. No, I agree with that. That's a good idea. It may be harder as we go, but as long as we're not being like, number 25.
Yeah, we can't take a lot of time with it. We'd have to just read them down real quick.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to do what I used to do on the solo show, where I'd get at the end and I would rank it on air and just put it between something, because there's two of us
Hmm.
and we've got separate lists. So I thought it would make more sense to read the list down. But you're right. Like, once we get into 50 and 100, it's like that's a lot of movies to have to read down.
Hmm. No, that's where you just kind of quickly glimpse over it and go look at some of the more interesting things.
Yeah, here's where things are now, and yeah, so that's my plan at the moment. That could change, because I didn't even think about the wrinkle Austin just brought up. He's right. Like, the further we go, the harder that's going to be.
But we're at 25, so we're good.
25 is not going to be too bad. But yeah, we'll just read it down and try not to take forever on it.
Yep.
I don't know. That's my idea at the moment. Anyway,
I can't wait for all the inconsistencies that I know I will have, because we're gonna do the top 100 superhero movies. And when people see like the things I put in Rewind, because I guarantee there will be inconsistencies.
Yeah. And quick plug for that. We're going to start that next month.
Hmm.
We're going to do a multi-part series counting down our top 100. So it's kind of odd that we're also going to do the ranking thing here, I guess.
I mean, no, because there's also bad stuff. So
Yeah, that's true.
Jumper isn't making your top 100. I hope.
No, it's sure not. It's going to be pretty low on that 25, I imagine. Also, I feel free to leave it out if you want to, but if you have a chance to watch the one you weren't on, you could get that in there too.
Which one was? Oh, the Gods and Monsters.
Gods and Monsters.
I can knock that off if you need me to.
Either way, it's up to you. I just wanted to mention that's the one
fine.
you missed.
That's fine. Is that like part of the 25?
Yeah, because I did it with Kareem. That was a Rewind commentary.
Oh no, I'm just making sure that like it's part of the count. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it is numbered. It was just a week you couldn't make it, and I was at that point trying to be more hard and fast about when we did them, and now I'm going back to that. So it's possible there will be other weeks Austin misses. Hopefully that doesn't happen very often. But...
I just opened my ranking, so I haven't added this movie, and obviously I haven't added that. But I'm only at. Oh no, never mind. I'm being dumb. Never mind.
I'm pretty sure the numbers are right.
Go. Never mind. I'm being stupid.
He's second guessing me, folks. Hey, thanks to all the Patreon producers, including Breezy Hemi and Jesse Surtees and Chewbacca's Lover and Dr. Hello and Goofster123 and Joe Turner. And why is my phone buzzing? It's just kind of like
calling me at this hour.
Leave me alone. Goofster123, Joe Turner, Jajira, John Matthew McLean. I'm just waiting for it to go off again. Justin Hayes, Matt Bat68, Michael Martin, Super Billy, Thomas Edgehill, Victor, Adam March, Damon Begay, Hot Soup, Jacob Schneider, Kareem Roberts, Matthew Brody, Miguel Rodriguez. This guy is the Day Ghost. What? Oh my God! Quit calling me, Austin. He's calling my phone.
I was waiting to see. I was like, "This maybe it's not gonna ring."
He's ruining the end of the show. The show ended 10 minutes ago. Everybody, the Day Ghost, Unknown Passenger, and Wendell Jones. You guys are wonderful. Thanks a lot for being here, and we're gonna get going before Austin makes it worse.
This stream is written by the real enemies of Geekvolution. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Which apparently you're one of those.
Mm. Oh yeah, I'm one of the head writers of Geekvolution.
Oh, you know what it is? You know what? No, it's a master manipulation plot, and I'm an idiot for not picking up on it. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I actually planted Sarah with you like all the way back then, even though I was like, like 3 months. And I was like, Sarah, you need to die so that he will be sad.
Yeah, make sure that you tell him some stupid story about a moon and a lover.
Don't you remember that story? Like, it was like your second date when Sarah was like, Cap, let me tell you about this guy who reviewed the moon.
There's this like Loki impish character. He's not important.
His name's Brandon. He's your saber tooth.
Okay, well, this is really going off the rails. We'll see you later, folks. Thanks a lot for watching. I was Captain Logan, and this is Austin the Day Ghost. We'll see you again next week with both animated Hellboy movies. If you have a chance, watch those ahead of time. And we'll see you with lots more geeky stuff here on Geekvolution. Bye, everybody.
See ya, folks.